brain dead from what? Arrow through the head? You may not be old enough.
Asphyxiation is what they think initially. Suicide.
Suicide? Must have had cancer. He's been keeping a little profile in these letters.
That's the fairgrounds guys here for that. I was going to John Crowder, where people do want to do back to back, or
They're all here, right?
They're all here. Yeah, I think it doesn't make a whole lot of difference.
Leave it.
I mean, if somebody's got to sit through something.
Well, I thought I saw their power line stuff up there on the floor.
Hey, Brian, are you here? Yeah, they're good.
I could have sworn I saw a Dominion poster. Huh? Maybe I'm wrong.
There's a Dominion poster up on the...
Okay, well, we can move that one back. We can move that back. Huh? We're rolling? All right. In that case, we'll call what is today, the 11th, August 11th meeting of the Haymarket Planning Commission to order. Roll call, please. Here. Announcements. I've got nothing. Anything from maybe ARB?
No.
No, we don't have a council member here, so I'm not going to give a council update. Skip to citizens time. Anybody who wishes to address the Planning Commission, please step forward. Seeing none, we'll close citizens time. Minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from Monday, July 14th, 2014.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a second one for
We do. Yeah, hang on a second. Hold it over here. I make a motion to approve the minutes from Monday, July 7th, 2014.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
New business. Haymarket Fairgrounds, Mr. Gravitz. I gotta shake, it's cold.
Mr. Chairman, while he's getting it.
Mainly it's a show and tell tonight, Bob.
Going to bring him right up here.
Yeah, bring him up here in the corner. We'll hide Sherry behind him.
Mr. Chairman, while he's getting set up, just quick background. Several years ago, Mr. Gravis, representatives came in and had several redevelopment plans for the fairgrounds property. This is the property behind the Coral Center, where the CVS and Buckner Bank, and also behind the Giuseppe Restaurant. The council indicated at the time there was an interest in wanting to look at that master plan they had in mind. I was contacted recently that the ownership wanted to come back in and talk to you again. At the suggestion of the town manager, rather than going to council and providing the concepts, the suggestion was that they come to you in your capacity as the land use advisors to the council. So that's why you're here this evening. I'm assuming that the feedback they take tonight and from the council next month will be translated into an application, but that being said, I'll let them tee it up and do what he said.
You guys can see it okay?
Can you guys get a view? I want to try to, so everybody can see.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
I can see it, yeah. We're good.
Very good.
I can move.
Yeah, we can walk down there if we need to.
The Haymarket Fairgrounds is 21 acres in the town of Haymarket, and we've been looking at this property for many, many years. One of the things that we're concerned about when we look at the zoning ordinance is it's evident that the town does not want to see commodity retail or big box retail. Most of the zoning ordinance spells out smaller retail. And so we're trying to create a specialty retail environment along the frontage with Washington Street. And we think that for the foreseeable future, probably the best opportunity for development today would be fee simple townhomes. With that, we would be able to create probably 70 or 70,000 square feet of specialty retail along the front and try to have a nice mixed-use community. Originally, we had talked about 300-unit apartment project with apartments above retail and retail frontage with a clubhouse and a pool. And at the time that we brought that forward, we got the impression that the town was not real comfortable with apartments. And we think we could do a very good job of managing 300 apartments in the town. And I think it would be a nice environment. But what we're doing here is sort of either or. As far as the marketplace is concerned, this would probably be an easier project to develop. 120 townhomes with 75,000 square foot of retail. This project would require additional investment. We'd have to come in and bring additional money to the property to put up 300 apartments. And we feel comfortable in doing that, but before we spend too much time and effort, we wanted to come before the Planning Commission and get your input. So that's why I'm here today.
Excuse me for a second, I can't see.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to tee up some other things. So the site is currently planned interchange park. This is really centered around the transient public that we see coming through the interchange, also very much auto-oriented, common parking facilities, high-quality materials that really speaks to more of the aesthetic that you see at the the west end of town. It is also zoned B2. B2 zoning district only allows residential as an accessory use to commercial on the second and third floors. In both scenarios, for the apartments and for the townhomes, it would require rezoning. Right now, as Mr. Bennett mentioned, we no longer provide an R3, which is a standalone apartment district. So for the proposal on the right, that would require also a zoning text amendment. Again, being predominantly commercial as part of the land use plan, it would require a plan amendment to track with it. I think what we've noticed as a staff over the years, the property is problematic in the sense that, not a problematic, but a challenge in the sense that it has a lot of street frontage. It's deep. So you're either looking at folks that want to locate on Washington Street, which leaves low visibility to those folks in the back, so you have to find someone who doesn't necessarily need high visibility. Typically, that's your big box retailers, your other ones that want to sit back from remote IBC and blue. So being long and deep, so to speak, presents some challenges. We spoke over time coming up with some sort of master plan or some way to run this piece of property. It is our largest last standing piece of land, so I do believe that there's some value in trying to work with the landowner to come up with a cohesive plan that basically wraps up this end of town. They have been in contact with the VDOT project, the interchange, and the expansion of 66. Holly continues to work with them, if for no other reason than just to make sure that what we're doing on Washington Street can provide adequate access to the property no matter the development plans there. So that's all I have to add, Mr. Chairman.
How many units are proposed in the townhouse plan?
120.
120?
Yeah, that's at 8 units per acre.
And what's the, is there going to be a tree line between Sherwood Forest and and either the two developed site plans?
These are actually front-loaded, so there'll be rear yards.
Okay.
There'll be rear yards there.
Will there be any, so essentially will there be removing of any existing trees or shrubbery that connect directly to Sherwood?
Absolutely. I mean, buffer similar to what you see here can be accommodated. But what we've shown is the actual lot line for the front load townhomes. What we have here is rear load for these, and the side ones, these are all front load.
Okay.
Which will accommodate a rear yard.
Mr. I think it's 10 feet is the buffer yard.
One of the concerns I've got is access. You've got three egress ingress points on 55. There's never been anything on 15, and I'm not aware if that's a VDOT requirement or not.
Access?
Yeah.
There's not enough room. The stacking is already limited from the stoplight to the entrance ramp for 66.
Well, no, and that's going to be a problem. You put 125 townhomes in there and 70,000 square feet. Access is going to be an issue.
on 15 has limited access right away because of the interstate, they never get out of it.
Yeah.
That's what, and I kind of wondered, I wasn't aware of that, but I figured that, yeah, because there's never been access on that side, yeah.
Never get.
We have a scoping meeting with VDOT on the 13th, so we're starting the process of, we've done counts, and they'll analyze things, and we'll make sure that we're accommodating the needs as it relates to VDOT on traffic, and we want to work with the town as well.
And right now, you're...
Probably less traffic than if it was all retail, but I'll let the count.
Distribution across time, retail hours, all hours, whatever it happens to be. You're gonna have traffic if you're gonna have townhomes in there, or a hotel has been discussed in there. Any number of things have been discussed in that space, but you're gonna have traffic in there.
One thing we think is important: pedestrian traffic and trying to make the town more of a town. We think that's very important. We think that you need more rooftops to really make the retail viable. We see a lot of people that have put up, signs and projects coming, and you really gotta work with trying to make it a cool place,
No, I
a
understand.
pedestrian-friendly place.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to accommodate here with some, angled parking and trying to make it so that it's walkable with breezeways through. And we've worked with Starbucks with the project in Arlington. I'd love to talk to them about here. That's why we got that little drive-through for that. But especially retail, you got to kind of make it cool.
Speaking of cool, are there any plans to, I know with most of the developments in the neighborhoods, pretty much no one really has a park except for maybe one or two neighborhoods. Are there any plans to introduce any sort of common grounds that are usable for residents in either of the two proposals?
If you're talking pocket parks, that sort of thing, I think it's something that we could work on.
Okay.
Nothing big. We're talking about, we believe it's very valuable real estate, and we'd want it to be more of a common area designed and integrated into the overall plan.
Right, and that's kind of what Pace West was supposed to be, is that common area. And access, so assuming if you're going to move a lot of homes in there, there's going to be more traffic going that way, theoretically, to the ball fields, et cetera, that are there for the recreation space. So again, one of my big concerns is traffic impact, both foot traffic. Let's assume that the walking town theory works now that you've got more walkers, and driving.
We've talked about providing interparcel access here.
Not necessarily there, but because really you're going, like it says, back into.
So it's back
There's
to,
some commercial there, but I don't know that you need
This will get
interparcel
you to
access there.
Fayette Street.
Yeah.
There was a connection there.
yeah, there's a lot behind Giuseppe's and another.
Yeah.
Which is actually up for sale right now.
It does provide interparcel access to the Coral Center to the west. That does take off some of your side trips. Rather people having to get out of Washington, go into Coral Center. If they want to go to Chick-fil-A, the bank, or CVS, they would be able to access it without having to come on the road. That captures some of your internal trips and reduce some of the overall trips.
Yeah, but you're still going to have, if nothing other than commuters. You're still going to have, how many people are actually going to work in the town? You're still going to have a lot of commuter traffic. You're going to have.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not disagreeing with the traffic
Yeah.
volume. I just earlier as we had talked about when they initially came in was providing that interparcel access to reduce
Some of the.
nominally some
Yeah.
of the side trips.
Yeah. Okay.
Any thoughts, Bob?
I got a few. I apologize because they're in no particular order. Guy, one of the things you said is there seems to be an opposition to big box retail. I'm not entirely convinced that's actually the case. There was opposition to it at Walmart. There's big box like Walmart, and then there's big box like Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's, your more niche big box, outside of your normal Best Buy, Walmart, BJ's, Sam's Club, that sort of thing.
It's mainly the zoning ordinance that I was referring to, the 35,000 square feet, because we did talk to, I'm not going to name who, but something along the lines of what you were talking about. They wanted like 75 to 80,000 square feet.
And the ability to do that would require the same zoning, the same magnitude of zoning changes that you would require to make this happen. In fact, it would actually probably be easier because you would have one step that you wouldn't have to do. This would require a comp plan amendment.
Correct.
So in order to accommodate this, you would need both the rezoning and a comp plan amendment to accommodate the other type where it's entirely retail, whether it's anchored by a big box in the back with your specialty shops up front. It's just a thought, but the process to get you to that scenario would be the same process required or need or necessary to get you to either one of those scenarios, because all the steps are still going to be there. The text would be different, the outcome would be different, but the scenario is the same.
I think the reason that we're here is to try to say, is this in keeping with trying to create a more walkable town, a more viable retail environment for the town? Not necessarily are we just going to put a big box store on the interchange and really not be part of the town. I think that we have an opportunity with the streetscape to try to make it a unique place, and that's kind of where we were coming from.
And that sort of ties into the second point that I've got. I mean, the reason that the comp plan is set up the way it is, at least one of the underlying reasons it was done several years ago and years in the past to maintain that commercial, is we have particular problems with growth. If the town grows, I think the key number is 3,500 in population. If the town exceeds 3,500 people in population, a whole series of things happens. A whole set of requirements happen. It triggers a necessity for a public works department. It triggers a necessity for a variety of other taxes and a variety of other services. It requires us to take care of the stormwater. It cuts down our ability to address problems with the streets and our street maintenance. And there's a laundry list of things that are triggered by 3,500 population figure for the town, and it carries with it a potentially onerous impact for the current residents of the town from a tax standpoint. So if you put specialty retail up the front, that's nice. I like it. From a tax revenue standpoint, it's not that great. I mean, it's good, but it's not great. But you're putting another 120 negative revenue townhouses behind it, and that shortfall will have to be made up across the town. Existing residents, whether they be in a townhouse, an apartment, or a single-family home. Even if we don't get to 3,500, but with all the development that's coming down the roads, we've got some other plans in the works. 3,500 is starting to look like a real possibility, and that's one of the reasons that we sort of left that end of the town in the comp plan for commercial development, because that's where your tax base would be, your non-residential tax base. The other thing that kind of throws it off is, I've always been a believer in keeping the ratio of your single-family townhouse and apartment complexes to some sort of standard ratio, and this would really skew it. One of the reasons we disposed of R3 zoning 6, 7, 8 years ago, I think it was, somewhere in there. One of the reasons that we got rid of the R3 zoning was we had enough, and throwing in more multifamily dwellings really skews that ratio, and it has a negative tax impact for the town and for the county, to be quite honest with you. And it creates some issues for the schools, which I'm not even going to get into, because if we go to the school board and tell them we're in favor of having another 120 townhouses in an area that is so overcrowded currently. Right now, Battlefield High School is sitting at
116% above capacity.
It's actually higher than 116 for next year, and they're projecting 143 before the 13th high school gets built, if it gets built. And I'm sure that's going to be an issue this fall with both Battlefield and with Patriot. And I'm not one for exacerbating the problem any more than we have to, both within the town and without. So I've got that concern. So we've got the population concern, the school concern. I would much prefer the whole thing to be developed commercially. I know that's difficult in this environment. I know it's difficult without an anchor. I've heard many times in this particular room, oh, we want boutique retail, we want specialty retail, and we're gonna make it survive. We're gonna be special because we're gonna be like Middleburg, and we're gonna survive on the boutique shops. Doesn't work unless you're Middleburg. Works great for Middleburg. They're a different circumstance.
Yeah, when I say specialty retail, there will be franchises.
That's fine, but it's still small retail.
Yeah.
And you need an anchor to do it. And quite frankly, the answer isn't rooftops to making those businesses viable. The answer is a workforce population that's in close proximity so that you have a lunch crowd. You can't make another restaurant work without a lunch crowd. There's not enough people that work around here. You know,
Bob, we're having a hard time with lunch crowd in Arlington, Virginia. I mean, the lunch crowd, if you talk to any restaurant, lunch used to be the in thing to do. People aren't going out to lunch the way they used to.
depends on the location.
Well, of course. The location's everything in real estate, but I'm not suggesting that we're dependent upon lunch business for what we're envisioning for our retail. And I do think that the town needs, while it doesn't need to be 3,500, it needs more population to get people walking and going to different stores and making it a sense of place. I do think it is a town that can have some, identity of its own and not just, big box retail.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, and I'm not going to get in a philosophical argument with you. I mean, I agree. By the same token, it's hard to develop a walking town when the only things you have to walk to are real estate agencies and vacuum stores.
That's right. That's what we're trying to do differently.
And I appreciate that. At the end of the day, the rooftops equation doesn't fly with me. We've got, if you look at the area surrounding the town, you've got townhouses as yet unbuilt at Piedmont Villages too.
Yes.
And you've got several hundred that just got approved 2 weeks ago for the Haven right across the road. We've got other people seeking them. Rooftops isn't the problem. The problem is everybody is gone for the majority of the business day. I would wager that a large percentage of the families here are two-income families, two-job families. Mom and dad are gone. There's nobody. It's a ghost town in the middle of the day from a business standpoint. I mean, to your point about Arlington, my current office is next to Boston. My previous office was in Clarendon.
We're in South Arlington. It's a little different.
It's a lot different in South Arlington.
What I'm saying is, even in a place where you're having trouble with the
you've got to have the right mix of office and retail, so that they have sort of a symbiotic relationship there to some extent, at least with regard to the retail. Now, getting somebody to lease office space, do I have the answer to that? No, I don't. I mean, I'm seeing Class A space go for $17 a square in Gainesville, and you can't give it away right now. Is it a location issue? Yes. Is it an issue with overbuilding? Yes. Is it poor locations in many cases? Yes. And Somerset Crossing, I think, is a perfect example of where you don't build that kind of thing without the access. I think I think the thing that you've got going in your favor at least for this particular parcel is you're at the intersection of 15 and 55, and you've got immediate access to 66. So you can put something in there that a lot of other people cannot because you've got the interstate access. Those are just my off-the-cuff thoughts. I'll have to sit down and take a look at the numbers. But I am very concerned about the population threshold and the potential cost to the town and the residents. Transportation is the other thing that's bugging me, and not transportation improvements. I don't want to get hung up on that. It's just sheer number of cars. We're dealing with, how many did put out at Haven? 240, 250 new townhouses, something like that? Several thousand trips a day? On to Heathcote, some of them are going to come into town. With 120 townhouse units, you're looking at roughly just north of 1,000 vehicle trips a day at 8.5 per unit. I think that's the standard figure.
Lower than that.
Lower than that now? I think Prince Williams is 8.5 in their calculations is 8.5. So that's a little over 1,000 trips a day onto 55, principally on the northern section of 55. Given the traffic volumes that we've got now and the problems that we've got now, residential traffic's kind of funny. It's not a steady flow, generally speaking. It spikes. It spikes in the morning rush hour, it spikes in the afternoon rush hour, it spikes on the weekends. And I don't know that funneling an additional 1,000 cars out of there in that close proximity to that stoplight with the road infrastructure that's currently available, and I don't see that changing, I'd be very uncomfortable with that. I'd be more comfortable with, quite frankly, I'd be more comfortable with a Walmart volume of traffic because it's spread out 24/7, and instead of having this spike of cars backing up the stoplight.
I don't think we're going to get Walmart.
Well, I'm just saying, as an example, as the extreme example. But I'd be, and that's one of the reasons I think we left the commercial, probably be more comfortable with that constant, more minimal level of traffic going through that intersection and going through that section of 55 than throwing residential traffic in addition to your small retail traffic at the same time. Again, I'll have to sit down and look at the numbers, but that's my initial thought. The last thing I've got is just a tiny one. I don't know that you want to punch through to Fayette. You might want to punch a walking trail through to Fayette if you can purchase the property. But Fayette, given its narrow width and the sight lines that you've got coming south on Fayette to 55, I don't know that you want to put a whole lot of traffic on that, because that just.
We did that when we met with the parking consultants. They suggested that they were trying to do a lot more with the east and west movements, and what could we do to help trying to make it more of a grid street town. I do think grid streets town, it works. It works if it's done right. You gotta think a little further east though to make it work.
I'd love to punch it. If you could punch it all the way from the edge of your property all the way over to
we don't control
Jefferson.
these properties
I understand,
now.
but if it could be punched all the way to Jefferson, that'd be great.
If nothing else, we just won't forget about it if that is something that the town would like to see. We want to accomplish.
Doesn't preclude the opportunity.
Exactly.
It doesn't preclude it. I'm just curious as to how that would actually work given the constraints of Fayette.
Now, with the traffic study, we would certainly expect as part of it, having to do a traffic study as part of it, which will compare the by right uses on the property to the residential. I understand what you're saying. It's the nature of how residential moves. Typically, residential is less than commercial. But that analysis, if they do submit, that analysis will be part of their.
I think your eastbound traffic's going to suffer the most, especially with the construction going on over the next year or so. With the bridge closing on Jefferson, it's going to reroute a lot of traffic.
I don't think these guys will be out of the ground.
No, that's not going to be a concern. I'm just concerned about the movements up there as well, because you got a very limited frontage with a lot of curb cuts already, and you've got what on the south side of it, you've got a curb cut at Sheets, 2 at McDonald's. Two into the shopping center, 1 into Foster's, and then immediately across that you've got the one for the garage.
They line up with the entrances.
But the distances are so short. I'm concerned about the
In the middle,
distances.
you could do a nice roundabout.
You really want me to throw this water bottle at you, don't you?
If you have them on the east and west end.
You really want me to throw this water bottle at you?
Again, I think there's value in discussing the master plan of the properties. They do have some office. I think the one plan guy does have 2-story.
Right. We limited office here.
We talked around about creating that lunchtime crowd. Did the other one have office in it?
No, that's mainly residential above retail here, and then this is office above retail there.
So eastbound, one other item is, it kind of, right where the property starts at your proposed entrance areas, it's right around the area where the lanes merge from 2 to 1. It's a prime spot, so with a little fix, that intersection could be viable for passing traffic and allow cars to turn left into it at the same time. Otherwise, get it back up from the lights.
There'd have to be a dedicated turn lane, absolutely.
From that turn, all the way to 15.
Absolutely. They'll change the streetscape, though, won't it? Holly? It would move it back.
If they only go onto their side, that's the thing. I don't know how much, since they don't own the property across the street, if they're having to add turn lanes, they're going to have to do it on their property.
Yeah, which would change the
And there's no
geometry.
street on their side.
Right.
Well, no, it hasn't been designed yet, but it's still a requirement.
And they would have to, and exactly as we talked about before, they have 2 points that they're trying to tie into.
Yeah.
Too. It's not going to be.
It's not going to be easy. Yeah. And it's going to be made more difficult by whatever requirement. This is also absent VDOT requirements. We don't know what they're going to say in terms of.
And I'm going also to the scheduling meeting on Wednesday as well. that's what I want to see the results of it, you know.
I'd love to hear how the scoping meeting goes, because I think that'll go a long way to telling you where you can and where you can't go, or what's feasible and what's not feasible,
In terms of,
both residential and commercial, because you're going to be limited by, I suspect you're going to be somewhat limited by what VDOT's going to have as a constraint for whatever your traffic generation is going to be, isn't it?
it will, we would ultimately, this site's going to be problematic
Yeah.
in any development
In any
scenario. You're just
scenario.
going to have to vet that street
Yeah.
line across the front. Now, one of the problems we are having is the backup traffic trying to get through the light.
Yeah.
And that's going to be,
Exacerbated.
well, it's to be resolved. The new lanes, the new lanes will provide a dedicated through lane to try to reduce some of that backup.
I mean, like it was supposed to be built the first time.
I'm an optimist.
I know.
I have one other question regarding both site plans. Do you know anything about the stormwater drainage plan yet, or?
This is not an engineer plan, but we believe those are the locations for.
Looks like you got 2 ponds set there.
You all have, there is a storm drain along the edge of that property on Sherwood Forest.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, the only concern with that is that even with moderate rains, it's already at capacity, and it has a tendency to overflow, so we're already
They'd
getting
have,
those
they'd have
issues.
to be contained.
Yeah.
What is it, .1? Marshawn?
I'm sorry.
They have to be completely constrained down to .1, right?
Point one.
What's their constraint on stormwater off-site?
I'm not sure I'm following what you're saying.
Because
How much
Sherwood
can-
Forest has its own stormwater.
Yeah.
They had understood that they would provide on-site stormwater here. They were actually already met with VDOT to see how these layouts might be impacted by the takes that
Okay.
VDOT was proposing. But it's like, it's not engineered yet.
It's not a fully, we're concept plan right now.
And they could not, at any point of discharge, they could not increase.
That's where that's where I was trying to go.
At any point of discharge, they cannot increase it versus what it is as a big field right now.
Just want to make sure you have that in mind when you're doing the planning, because it's going to be really important. I don't know what they're going to do about it, but that's something I need to deal with. Heard Sherwood Forest directly.
So after your scoping meeting, and if you want to think about what we've had to say, I'd welcome some more feedback from you. I really would. I've got nothing but time. So if you need my 2 cents at any point in time, just pick up the phone. You know where to find me.
Very good. Is there anything else that I can talk about? I think we're going to do the same show and tell with the town council. Is that
Yes.
correct? So we're not rushing this thing. The ownership's had that since 1974, but we do think that now's the time to start doing something. So
We would certainly expect that an application does come in, we work with you to flush out the details on community amenities. The architecture would be under review, it's still within the architecture review board, so there'd be opportunities to talk about design, aesthetics, certainly your intent to do a high quality product, so yeah, we wouldn't look at this as the final, correctly?
that's a
It's not the
concept.
final,
That's just
the
a
ultimate,
concept.
it's a starting point with which to negotiate.
This is a great start point.
How many square feet of retail are theoretically planned for across the street?
32,000.
Yeah, I appreciate that theoretical. We're trying, when you're dealing with concepts and you're trying to create something, we need something to make, we need shoppers.
Yeah, and I understand that,
You
right.
know, that's part of the,
Right, so if you've got retail going in there, which was pure retail, no residential, if you got 30,000 feet going in there of really small shops is what it's designed as. It's boutiques.
It's got residential on the second floor too, doesn't it? I don't remember.
The plan does. The plan they're coming in
Yeah.
with, and let me footnote that, it's 2 level, first floor retail, second floor office. So divide that by about half that amount is
Okay.
second floor office, which creates more of that daytime population.
But that's not even a given yet because they're still approved with residential upstairs, correct?
Correct.
they're grandfathered.
I'm fairly
Confident that that's not
confident
going to
that
happen?
we're going to come in with that old plan's not interested, the
Certainly.
owner has no interest in developing it.
Good.
It'll be a redevelopment plan.
All right.
But it would create that daytime population to
Support the
support the business.
commercial, yeah. Yeah, that's what I think we need to see. Assuming they can get it leased. And I apologize for my voice tonight.
So at this point, the suggestion having them come to you, we did suggest that, they show both of the earlier concepts that they came back with. If there was informal comments you wanted to forward along with the council or have a sort of discussion with the council when they look at it, it's certainly up to you. So we wanted them to come to you first, get some of your feedback before.
We can talk about feedback later on.
Okay.
How we're gonna accomplish that. I
Thank you all
appreciate
very
coming in,
much.
Jack.
Thank you all very much for your time.
Not a problem.
All right.
I'm gonna skip Dominion for the moment. There is nobody from Dominion here, correct?
Sorry.
John Marshall Commons, you're up.
Okay. John Marshall Commons, I've briefed the commission for several months on this project. This is east of town, east of Pace West. Encompasses the properties basically on east and west of the commercial center where the Taekwondo place, Rainbow Station, doctor's office. They are gearing up, the applicant is gearing up to try to go to public hearing by the planning commission this fall. Supervisor Canlin did request that the applicant come and brief the town. As a staff, we've met with them several times to talk about the logistics of Washington Street, transitioning this project into our streetscape project. They do incorporate a traffic circle, we mentioned before, right across from the post office. We also talked about interparcel connections, pedestrian connections. There's stormwater ponds for Alexander's Keep is in the county. They're going to reuse that pond. But nonetheless, the applicant is here this evening to basically brief the project to you, get your feedback. What we would expect is that the commission will make their recommendation to the council, and the council will formally make their recommendation to the board of supervisors. This is a 1 mile jurisdiction, so simply that is a recommendation, but I think it's a positive thing that the supervisor has suggested that they come and meet with us. So what you'll have here this evening is the contract purchaser, Roy Barnett. You have folks in the audience that own some of the properties that are subject to the application, as well as the traffic engineer, Doug Kennedy. But I'm really going to turn it over to them in a similar format to the fairgrounds and answer any questions that you have. Holly has looked over the traffic material, right here in the best, and provide some feedback on that.
Roy, you're
Great.
Good evening. I'm Ed Wilburn. I'll present the general plan, and when we get to the details of the mixed uses, I'll turn it over to the board.
Gonna make me put my glasses on, aren't you?
A short field trip down there.
I'm getting too old.
Typically, what we've done in the past is when these applications have come in as a staff, we simply brief them, what does our comp plan say, what is our road numbering and vision, and the like, and we've made our recommendations formally to the planning commission. In this case, as I said, they're looking for a formal recommendation from the council.
This zoning application is going forward by the Haymarket Development LLC. The project is called John Marshall Commons. As stated, the project is between Tyler Elementary and the old Gainesville Elementary School. This, by the way, is a 1989 aerial view to get a little bit of the history. The applicants are ranging in age from the mid-60s to close to 90, and all of them longtime residents of the Haymarket area, back long before 66 came through. In fact, 66 split some of the properties and split the Stokely Farm, which put the farm on the north side of 66. The area, as you see it more today, lies right across from the post office. The property is split by Piedmont Plaza, and some of the issues when we went to planning in February of 2012 was the fact that some of the properties between the school had already been zoned, and the area right here is zoned industrial, light industrial, where the old phone service building is with the 5 acres. Then the Piedmont Plaza is in red, which splits the property almost in the center. And because the county prefers a 25-acre mixed use for the CEC, we saw that as a problem, and working with staff and the planning director and legal, they asked us first to address the solution by seeing if we could bring the other properties into the mix, such as the Gossam property, Smith property, and the M2, because the M2 is not a allowable use in CEC. So we attempted, and also they wanted us to try to acquire easements between the Piedmont Plaza. We tried the easements. We were not able to do that. That's an association. We couldn't accomplish that. We were able to get the owner of the old telephone service building to come into the application with us. So then basically we had everything between the schools except the Piedmont Plaza and the corner. So in order to address that from the point we were, staff asked us to develop a plan that would be inclusive of the Piedmont Plaza and make the Piedmont Plaza's restaurants and services the walkable community that you just heard the other applicant talk about. We have within the Piedmont Plaza interparcel connectors by right, and so we were able to develop a plan that worked in effect to create the community and the intent of a CEC development. We ended up that staff would like commercial, office, retail along John Marshall. The mix of units are towns on the east. I believe there are 80 towns, 85 towns, and 120 back-to-back towns on the west side. So it would create a 205-unit residential with the intermingling and accessible with the existing commercial and the new commercial. The future development of the corner was looked at and considered to be the potential for additional commercial. The transportation issue that we faced with some of our problems in the beginning that we worked out also with staff was the fact that we had 4 lanes converging into the town's 2 lanes. Not only that, but you had one side of John Marshall with ditches and one side with curb and gutter that needed to be addressed. And to resolve that, we ended up with at the suggestion of Roy, Burnett was here, a roundabout, which I was never a proponent of. I fought roundabouts forever, but once we got into this, studying them and listening to VDOT, and then going out and experience them, there are situations where it is the best solution. And the reason that this ended up being a great solution for this particular project was because it was the best way to transition the 4 lanes down into 2 lanes as a calming, traffic calmer coming into Haymarket. The speed limit would start back an additional 500 feet to the roundabout to 25 miles an hour to the existing speed limit that goes through Haymarket. The other interesting aspect about the transportation is the fact that it actually creates a situation where the preference access to 66 becomes eastbound instead of westbound through Haymarket. From the roundabout to the 2966 interchange going to the new on-ramp is 1.9 miles. To get to that same point from the roundabout heading west is 3.9 miles. So all of us know how we prefer our driving patterns. We're not going to choose an extra 2 miles on 66 in rush hour. So that created a situation where the project has considerable less impact or very little impact on our intersection of Old Carolina and John Marshall. The traffic that would be generated to the west would be folks that were seeking out businesses, maybe to Walmart, but even to Walmart in timing it, and some of the residents that live in here right now, they actually go Cat Harpin, Heathcote into Walmart, and they say that saves them about 5 to 10 minutes because they dearly avoid the Old Carolina traffic light. The mix on the units, I'm going to ask Roy to come up and present his board while I address the specific mixes. A lot of issues that have been brought up in visiting with Marshawn, others, the mayor, meetings with some of you, and citizens in the community have created a lot of improvements. One of the most recent in meeting with Sean, the new owner of your Old Gainesville Elementary, is that we were proffering to connect the trail or walk to the street across his property, so that would make it a complete connection for the town. And I think that he said that he had been approaching the town to do this, and that was volunteered by Van Meter Homes. So I'm going to ask Roy to come up and address the specific mixes and the design. Then we'll take questions.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. If I may, I'd like to hand out 3 different. So as Ned said, on the east side of the site, again, you have T-Mobile Plaza in the middle, Power Elementary on the far east, Pace on the west. On the east side, we have 85 townhomes with commercial in the front, about 2 acres of commercial land in this area here that would be zoned in a B2 equivalency with some of the more negative uses that are allowed in the B2 in the county being proffered out. So with the 85, those are 22-foot townhomes. They're the one elevation that I sent to you, that's the artistic rendering. They're two-car garages with two-car spaces in the driveway in front of the unit to provide 4 parking spaces for every unit if people use the garage and the driveway. But at least we have the 4 spaces in total there, so that we would have those spaces. And we do have proffers that prohibit the use of the garage for anything other than parking of a car. On the particular zoning category that we're working under requires a minimum of 2 different products. And we originally had an apartment community proposed for the west side of over 200 units, 208 units. And as we went through the process, we were looking at the amount of households here and families, and so we reduced the number of units to 120. So we reduced 85 units, or 88 units, out of the west. So we went from 208 to 120. And we went to a unit that is a townhome look unit, and if you have both 2 elevations there, it's a back-to-back townhome. And a back-to-back townhome means that there is no rear to the townhome. You have 2 fronts. So you have a townhome unit that fronts one side, and you have a townhome unit that fronts the other direction. So the townhome goes back to the middle of what we traditionally think is a standard townhome. So in these units here, what you have is the garage side, which is a unit that has the space above the garage, the 2 floors above the garage. So it's a townhome living that has an entry on ground level and then 2 floors of living above. And then on the other front, you have a townhome that has 3 levels of living, and it has one of the garages that faces the other side. So there's the 2 garages, one serves the one unit on the one side, the other garage serves the unit that's on the other front. So they're back-to-back units. They become wider units, so they have a nice streetscape. They're basically 27 feet wide. It allows for the 2 parking garages and the entry foyer on the one side, and it gives you a nice space on the other to give you a living room, dining room, kitchen, family room on the first floor. So they live, feel, look like townhomes, but they're condominiums. They're what we call a back-to-back. We have built those homes with Van Meter, and I have built this community over in our Stone Ridge. A section of our Stone Ridge community has this type of product. What you'll see in this product is mainly first-time buyers or move-down buyers. Someone who's moving and wants into a smaller space, but still has the independence to live in a townhome-type look without having the townhome maintenance. So, in the first time. So, when we talk about the population there, and especially when you get into schools, we find that this product has a lot less children than any other product that we build. And we can look at those counts from our experience at Stone Ridge. And our demographic there, when we designed this product, it was really the same demographic that we've seen that purchased the product. So again, it's usually first-time buyers and the move-down buyers who's looking to get into something smaller, maintenance-free, but does not want to live in an apartment or a condominium flat, because this unit has no living space above any other living space. The only place you have space above each other is the garages. So you don't have to worry about any noise penetrations vertically. And then, of course, the townhome is something that we have tried and proven product that, again, is 22 foot wide. I do want to say that we did have a very good meeting with QBE. And again, as you heard earlier, having connectivity and something that we talked to the chairman a little bit about is we're outside the town limits, but we want to have this community integrated with the town businesses. And so this area of town, on the east side, the sidewalk system in this general area, you have brick sidewalks here to about, I want to say, light. and then you transition into a concrete walk on the south side of 55, but nothing on the north side. So we have worked and met with them, met with QBE. They have, and one of the comments I asked them, or one of the questions I asked them was, would they consider granting an easement? And at least verbally, Mr. Landry has said, yes, he has no problem granting an easement. So we're looking at a 10-foot wide asphalt trail that would go from Blight to the town line. It would then continue across our frontage as a 10-foot trail. We have resolved that since I met with Holly and Marchant last week. We've got some clarification from VDOT on having the trail there within the right-of-way in the county. It would be an easement across Mr. QBE property, the QBE property, with a maintenance agreement with our association. So we would maintain the trail.
Hold on for a second. Isn't that part of phase whatever of the streetscape in front of Pace West? Yes or no?
No,
It's not. It ends at Blight?
the streetscape ends of life.
So we would take over maintenance responsibility for that piece of trail in an easement, and we would end up even though it's in the VDOT right away, we'll end up maintaining the trail across our frontage because they're just not coming out to take care of mow grass and push snow off trails. So we'd have a trail across at least the western portion of our property over the Piedmont Plaza. Piedmont Plaza, they, for whatever reason, when that was approved in the 80s, they were approved with a 5-foot concrete sidewalk across their frontage. So we'll have a trail to their property, transition into their 5-foot sidewalk, which is probably a good terminus for this trail anyways, because you're right at the proposed circle. And then we would pick up on the east side of the circle, again with a trail across this portion of the property. So 85 townhomes on the east side with commercial, 120 condominiums on the west side with commercial in front, a clubhouse and pool. So we would have a clubhouse facility for our residents as well as a pool facility for our residents. And the existing building that's being used as office space today will continue to be used as office space.
Sure. Hold on.
That's it. We're open for questions or comments.
Just for a second, I want to recognize the applicants that are here. Would you guys please stand, the ones that are here? So we have the original owners of the 4R school. An owner that isn't here is the original owner of the Haymarket Veterinarian. Those are all part of the application. Like I said, these folks have been around here for a long time, part of the community, and their interest was a quality product, and when they could join up with Van Meter, they took advantage of that to create as quality of project as we possibly could. Thank you. Okay. And also, as a side note, this will not impact your 3,500 benchmark.
Sure.
I saw the streetscape ended up Blight. What I meant is that the proposed improvements by the town ends up Blight.
Okay.
You always assume whoever developed Pace West
Would extend that same.
Then we would have to figure out the tie-in between a shared use path in the county and sidewalks.
And curb and gutter and
The sidewalks and on-street bike lanes in the town. And that is actually, if you're talking, if they're coming from the town, doing it at an intersection is the appropriate place for a switch. Okay, just one quick.
Mr. Schneider.
So what we had talked about initially as a staff is if we were kind of late in the game, we were briefed on the traffic circle. That was a conversation that went all the way down to Richmond. So as much as we were involved in the expansion and the 66 and the interchange, this was something we kind of came late in the game with. We were provided a copy of the traffic study. We did look through those materials. Our main concern was how to tie in the road system into our system. The county's countywide transportation plan still has it. Was it 4 lanes, a divided highway? 4-lane divided highway into the town. And so just what happened. So the point about the multi-use trail, this is part of Washington Street is part of the county's trail system. It is identified on the comprehensive plan. So the idea was where in the interim, street improvements would not yield a bike trail. Concern we had with the applicant as to how to get people, pedestrians and bicycles safely into the town. So that what that multi-trail allows it to do is instead of in lieu of a bike lane, a dedicated bike lane in the county side, it would allow folks to get on that multi-use trail, come into Blight, drive on that multi-use trail, and then either go into our on-street bicycle system or continue forward on the sidewalk that we have. Does that make sense? So we would hope that as QBE develops, they do their curb and gutter and sidewalk, there would be enough width to do a bike lane. But the point that we hit the county line, and there's a question about providing a bike lane, we have an alternate way to get folks safely back and forth. The traffic circle, there's a long discussion over the efficiency of that. It does create a transition into the town, does slow folks down sooner versus trying to, race each other to get ahead of other traffic getting into the town that goes to 2 lanes. There was discussion about the stormwater management facility, also some utility connections that were supposed to be done as part of Alexander's Keep. They would incorporate this pond into their plan, but would maintain agreements in terms of Sherwood Forest, Alexander's Keep using this stormwater facility, and also having the town's ability to, because it is town water going into a county facility, the town would still have some rights to that. So other than that, the land use plan, obviously most of you know this was Zone B2 as part of the purchase of Base West. We still plan it as public and civic, and it's still used in some of that capacity. Although in the back we do have an R2 zoning, which would somewhat match the density of residential that they're proposing on the county side. So the road network, again, the stormwater facility, that was the main focus of the staff review. We did not provide a formal recommendation, but the applicant has been more than forthcoming in trying to solve the transportation solution in the stormwater. So, thanks, Mr. Chair.
Josh.
So, in terms of, road speed limits, I know it goes up to 45 right before the property. Probably anticipate that's probably going to drop closer to 35 between the railroad track.
Yeah, it actually, within the property limits, it drops to 35 before it gets to the 25.
Right about that post office area.
Yeah.
Really, the only questions I have really pertain to the stormwater. And like I said, with Alexander's Keep over there, is the management company also going to be Sequoia, or is it going to be a different management company?
The property management company for the HOA, the homeowners association. We have a homeowners association, we'll have a condominium association here. Those will be selected separately, and we go through a procurement process for that.
Okay. Yeah, just with any shared resources such as stormwater. I know Sequoia is managing Alexander's Keep.
Right.
So.
They would be managing this. We're looking at building a much more substantial facility, and as we're coming through the process in 2014, we're subject to the new stormwater management guidelines that were effective July 1st.
Okay.
Well,
So right now, I'm not sure exactly that I heard correctly. The space that you show as open area right now in front of the residential, that is commercial, but the proffer is that you will not use that as
No,
commercial?
we'll use it as commercial, it'll be B2, but some of the more negative BT uses.
So what are you going to put there? Not grass.
Yeah, we don't know. It's going to be a use that's allowed under the B2 zone. If it's office, there's certain requirements for the office space. If it's another B2 use, and in the B2 category, there's several uses that are allowed in that area. There's banks and daycares and office buildings.
Retail, one of them in B2?
Retail's also in there.
Okay, so it could be virtually anything. We're not talking, again, high-rise, but...
No, it would be a commercial use.
Back to our crematorium?
Crematoriums are, we struck crematoriums from the B2.
the business,
Yeah, no, I mean, there's local history with that. That's why
Well, I didn't know
the business that won't die, so to speak.
Yeah.
What is proffered out are drive-throughs except for potential of a drive-through bank type on that.
Fast food is proffered out.
So I guess they're not proffered out, but drive-throughs.
But,
If they
okay.
want a drive-through, they can.
Which is, I mean, that's
Right. More or less eliminated.
pretty much, yeah. Okay. Wow. So right now, in terms of your traffic study, and I think your traffic study said that the traffic had decreased in recent years in the Haymarket area. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm Doug Kennedy with Pennoni Associates. We did a traffic study. Based on the VDOT historical rates, the traffic on 55 has decreased since 2005. It's gone from about...
Okay, VDOT obviously doesn't live anywhere close to this area. They're probably living in
We-
Texas.
We've gone out and we actually took the traffic counts in 2011 and looked at them in relation to the cars out there. What ends up being is your 55 going through Jefferson and Washington Street, up until you've put in the left turn lanes, you've really had a bottleneck there in terms of ability to, on a daily basis,
still do.
and for the peak hours, that's really the control. So the actual change in traffic volumes have been very, very low to almost negative.
I've lived here since '96. That's not an accurate statement.
Well, at least from 2005, looking at when we were forecasting, and we did build in growth about basically from 0.5% to 2%, plus modeled in the new retails that have been programmed in the pipeline to look at the growth, and that's where we were coming into the options that we were on Route 55, looking at what we can do, and that's actually in our discussions what led to the roundabout versus putting a signal over at Piedmont. So we have allowed for growth in there, but the actual VDOT historical trends really have not shown a significant growth on 55.
We all know how reliable VDOT numbers are.
Well, like I say, they live somewhere,
Yeah, it might be
Texas.
Well,
There's going to be a lot of
I think we
redirection.
pointed out the normal traffic pattern was rush hour.
That's not necessarily accurate either. People will take the easiest route, whether it's perceived or whether it's clocked, and a lot of it is perceived. So I don't put much stock in saying that.
I agree with you
Yeah.
for a couple of times, but once they find out the real time, I think.
And I can tell you
Yeah,
from
it's-
experience that the real time is quicker to go to 15 and on to 66 and travel 70 miles an hour on 66 than it is to
until you
transit the
Manassas,
Linton Hall corridor and the exit on 66 improved or not. And I can tell you from the morning traffic patterns that a lot of people do the same. A majority of the people do the same thing because they take a left-hand turn out of St. Paul Drive
Yeah.
and they don't go right.
I'm an early traveler, and I come from this part, and I hit 15 and 66 about 6:30 to 7:30, and it's already queued back here.
And I've never experienced that in the time that I've been commuting for the last 14 years.
Yeah,
I mean, realistically, what we're looking at is, although we're having the widening project occurring, during the school year, you're going to hit traffic at that Gainesville exit, no doubt. You're going to get heavy volume, and I've been seeing it over the last few months on 55, or not 55, sorry, 66. So it's a growing problem, but it's not problematic as of yet. From the traffic standpoint with the circle, I think the only issue I have personally is that you have a lot of residents that like going to the Virginia Gateway Center, and that will entice some people to detour through Jefferson or side roads to get on different parts of 29. It has. I've been here since 2012. I haven't been here for 20 years, but traffic over the last 2 years has grown substantially.
Marchant, you had
I
a...
started commuting to Bethesda in 1986.
That's right, I commute too. So, yeah.
They actually do go out and do counts now. I mean, it's not as if they're relying solely on VDOT's historical numbers. They do actually physically go out and count trips as part of the...
We took counts out there along the intersections in 2011, just like the folks coming in with their scoping will probably take new counts. We use that as our basis, our counts, where we look at the historical trends, what's happening, and also recognizing that the construction in 66 has been going on at Linton Hall and 29, and you'll see the improvement projects at 15. So we did recognize that traffic would be going west. I think the graphic is showing you do have the options and the alternatives, and traffic is going to find the best route through there, and we see a lot of opportunities to go with the roundabout to not have delays, that people can come out of the site, go through the roundabout, and head east back towards Linton Hall or Gateway Center.
So yeah, I mean the roundabout will work on a temporary basis. What would you say 5 to 10 years if they do additional developments before your proposed zone and before the town of Haymarket, that area between your properties and the railroad track?
We actually had to mark it in the retail that's been proposed in the pipeline as part of the background. And so that was actually looking at improvements, and that project is bringing improvements at the signal. And I think you'll see some improvements there with that development with additional retail there. And that's why we did look at options in terms of where traffic was going both east and west.
Also development at Cat Harbor in Old Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did need to, part of our scoping, we agree with VDOT and the county to look at that, include that in the background, assuming that comes online, which, subject to marketing conditions, probably will come online before this one does.
Okay. Ralph, would you please continue? Sorry.
I got your
That's okay. Over there.
The traffic circle does concern me for a number of reasons. What were the other options that you looked at prior to determining the circle?
Signal, traffic signal.
A signal?
Pardon?
A signal?
Yes.
Where?
At the location of the roundabout.
We looked, and as part of the VDOT review, we looked at if there was enough traffic with this site, with traffic coming out of Piedmont and with traffic coming out of Gillis on the other side of the road, if we satisfied enough traffic to put a signal in there. We were right at the threshold. It was not at our front door. VDOT was concerned of our ability to put that signal in, so they had suggested in terms of looking at the access and also with the access to the property to the east, being close to this intersection, they were concerned about left turns. And so VDOT actually had suggested putting the roundabout in to allow for better spacing and provide, I think VDOT recognized that the county plan of the 4 lanes going down to the 2 lanes in the town would need a change. And so they looked at it. We studied for a while how we could fit it in there, and it seemed like it was a good option as opposed to putting a traffic signal in at Gillis.
Would I be right to presume then that given the traffic counts and the exigent circumstances that you were going to be limited to right in, right out?
We worked with VDOT on the eastern entrance. They were concerned with the ability to get the left turns in there without running into the existing left turn lane at Gillis. So VDOT did talk about the access to the east property and that we would need to look at some alternative access if we didn't have a...
So in short, that's a yes, right in, right out?
Well, we are showing on the east side, yes, we are showing the ability to make the left in with the roundabout, yes.
Okay. Sorry. Continue. I'm sorry. I get my one interruption.
You can have more than that. No, and I mean, you essentially, not only are you bifurcated in the middle to the property that's in there, but I mean, that traffic circle, people are going to go opposite directions from each community, and that's going to force a lot of traffic into Haymarket.
This is more of a bottleneck than anything else. But with the small misinformation provided from VDOT to the actuals, we're clearly within the traffic light ordinance or zone for justifying one.
Yeah, because I mean, this entire community is going to come through Haymarket. They're not. That's going to be a nightmare.
Actually, if I may talk about this traffic circle, what happened was, and I was deeply involved in this, is that before you had 4 lanes coming to the town line and then acting as a wedge.
Yep.
And so whether you signal here or not, you have a signal there, then you have 4 lanes. And
You're still got to crunch,
4 lanes,
right?
And then you're wedging into the town.
Right.
What the discussion was with VDOT is that you have 4 lanes east of the circle, but as you come to the circle, you have 2 lanes going westbound. 1 lane actually becomes the right turn lane into the street, and only 1 lane comes through. So you take that wedge that would have occurred here, and it becomes back into the county, and the circle, when you come out of the circle, you're coming out with 1 lane in each direction. And what they said was, and what's been looked at and I for one, for years, I've engineered around circles. I've said I don't want to do a circle. They've actually shown that the flow of traffic moving through these circles is better than any type of signalized intersection.
Yeah, but again, you've got traffic coming out of the circle, and right now you show it cutting across in left into that, and that's going to be
The one thing for the
This left here,
for the
I'm sorry,
eastern lane
this-
there,
yeah.
I would like to clarify, is this the left turn you're talking about here? This left turn is a left that is a separate lane that
Correct.
drops off.
I see that's a lane, yeah. No, I
It's
see
a
it's a
separate lane
turn lane.
because when you come out of this circle, they only want one lane coming out of the circle. So you have a center line lane that comes out of the circle and continues ahead. You have that short left, which is a minimum stacking to get into this, and then you immediately start into this drop lane on the right turn lane. But as you come out of this gives you 4 lanes plus going east. So this left lane here is really a short stack lane and has no signals or no crossover there. What we looked at was that without having some ability here, this circle actually provides the most easiest flow instead of a right in, right out. If it's a right in, right out, and then a signal and no way to do it, you either have people making a U-turn at a signal, or they can wrap the circle, or they go straight ahead. So with the circle, it provides a very convenient access to go back east. And then the other thing we do have is we have interparcel connections from here to Piedmont Plaza on both sides.
Well, but that's pedestrian.
No,
that would be vehicle
it
access
is
also.
vehicle.
Correct.
It's
So
vehicular
to be able
access
to,
to Piedmont Plaza on both sides, that's proffered within Piedmont, that they must allow the interparcel connections.
Okay.
There's actually easements on those interparcel connections that require that construction. So from a practical standpoint, you have circulation back and forth here, out here, out here, and out here.
And do they get to put as many speed bumps as they want on that?
They can put whatever they want within their street.
Have you driven between those two buildings?
we did also show
In your truck.
on the west access. We did show the full access for the western portion because we had the 2-lane section in there versus the 4-lane section to the east. But that access would be able to come out on 55 as well as go through Piedmont to get to the roundabout for left turns.
I see rush hour in there as a
Nightmare.
yes.
Yes.
But this, and again, what I said before, too, is you have that transition where people are slowing down. At the point that 55 becomes 4 lanes,
Yeah.
people are racing each other to get
Yeah,
jockey for position to get into the town first. So
I'm not saying that there's a good solution to this.
Yeah. I think, no, what's interesting is that part of this plan actually takes asphalt out. That, is that correct, Roy?
Yes.
Part of the plan would actually take it out. So right now, we kind of have that sea of asphalt. What you generally see is that when there's less asphalt, people visually will slow down if the road's narrow or it's kind of traffic calming.
Holly, you've got a comment?
Yeah, I just want to make sure you, when I was asking about the running right out, you picked up what Doug had said, that the western access is full access around the left. But with the interparcel connector, they can always go through and then go down to the roundabout. They're not forced to enter at that entrance.
I'm not completely deaf yet. I'm getting there.
Okay, I just want to make sure that you had that.
Senile, too.
Doug, was there a point where the traffic circle failed in the 20-year horizon, or did it stay level of service?
It's always working better than the signal because of the long delays in a single lane with the traffic signal. VDOT had looked at in the future maybe putting utilities to allow for a future widening to a 4-lane, but VDOT had agreed with the design concept that really goes through the 2035 design here.
Yeah, but you're always going to hit that road, that bottleneck inside of the town of Haymarket. It's no real different than what happened in Deanna. Deanna didn't want to cut through, and then all of a sudden, when traffic exploded, they said, we're dead.
Yeah, I'm still of the mindset that once 29 gets done, once the interchange gets done,
We still have little teeny narrow roads in the town.
we do. And to that point, I think we'll say, well, where do you strike that critical mass of pass-by traffic that benefits our businesses and people that are just cutting through
Just getting
town?
through, yeah.
I would think that we would want some level of not backup, but some level of volume coming through the town. So I think that road network will improve it. School districts are going to change. I think a couple of things are going to be telling. How traffic behaves when the road closes, when North Carolina closes.
But that's temporary. We're talking about,
It's going to be temporary. And then when the school opens, we're going to get some behaviors of school districts change that may or may not check the amount of traffic that's coming through the intersection. So in my mind, once again, 66 is expanded, interchange done, 29 finished, Somerset Crossing pushed out to 15 from Old Carolina through the school site out to 60, out to 15, the bypass. All my money.
You're forgetting something, though. With those improvements comes several thousand more residential units. So your increase in capacity is eaten up.
On the
I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear the Loudon planning argument. I've heard it before.
No, I'm not doing
Okay,
that here.
so-
You want the alternatives to getting in and out.
I think we can agree to disagree on the efficacy of the traffic circle. And I'll end my comments on the traffic issue on that.
My turn now?
Your turn.
Okay. As the rest of the planning commission is aware, even the ones that aren't here, I actually sat down with the applicants 2-3 weeks ago. So my comments aren't going to come as a surprise to them, although I do have a few additional ones. And again, I apologize that they're not in a terribly organized manner here. I've sat up here for a long time in Woodland, and I have commented to the county for a very long time, verbally and in writing. And quite frankly, the planning for the western end of the county, and particularly the Gainesville district, has been a disaster for decades, and that's why we have what we've got. That's why we have the traffic problems we have. That's why we have the vacant storefronts. That's why we have the school overcrowding issues. Is there an answer to it at this point in time? No, there probably isn't. But this particular area serves as a beautiful example. You've got currently zoned M1 CEC overlay as a comp plan map, and it ignores the reality of what's across the street and what's next to it. And the town, for years, has tried to make its comp plan comport with the county on all of its borders. And it's difficult because the county's comp plan is a moving target. Board of Supervisors constantly issues comp plan amendments and rezonings around the periphery of the town, which make our comp plan virtually useless a year after it's written. They change commercial to residential, residential to commercial, and then they flop it back again. My understanding is this lies with the CEC designation. Doesn't look to me like, I could be wrong, I haven't looked at the numbers and I haven't looked at the square footage, but it doesn't look to me like you're comporting with the CEC designation, and the only way you're able to accommodate is by using the existing commercial. Well, that's really not in the spirit of comporting with the CEC. It really doesn't do us much good, and quite frankly, my arguments from earlier with regard to the fairground properties and increasing the density in this area apply to this one as well. Is it going to have a lower number of children in one aspect of it? Yes, possibly. The market's changing. We don't know. Loudon just upped its numbers for that type of unit. It's definitely going to have an impact with the townhouse units. And at the overcrowding we're looking at, and I have serious questions as to whether the 13th high school actually gets built, because I'm not sure that the county's going to have debt capacity at that point in time. That's a real concern from my standpoint. I'm not really in favor of exacerbating the situation even more so. Would I be willing to take, what is this, 27 acres, 25 acres roughly, something like that? If you wanted to convert it to the equivalent of the town's R4, where you put 4 single-family homes per, a density unit of 4 per acre, my way of looking at that is it generates half the additional students, and it generates half the number of revenue-negative townhouses, or revenue-negative housing units. You guys get more units building it this way, you get more bang for your buck, the county incurs more debt. More students. And that's just the overview, my philosophical side of it. From a practical standpoint, let's start with the roundabout. My take on that is it's the flavor of the month. It's transportation's flavor of the month for dealing with the situation. Quite frankly, it's lipstick on a pig here. Traffic light signal, stop, 4-way stop, roundabout, it doesn't matter. You've got so many curb cuts and so much traffic coming into that, 150-yard area, and you're going to add that many cars there? Is there a viable solution? No, probably not. Is there one that's less objectionable than others? Yes. Which one is it? I don't know. Any way you look at it, it's going to be crowded. Roundabout, traffic signal, 6 one, half dozen the other. You're still going to be dealing with the traffic issues. As regards the presumption that the traffic is going to go east on 55 through the Linton Hall corridor, either to the Linton Hall corridor or subsequently up 29 to 66, the reality is that's probably not going to happen. It's a red herring in my view. I mean, I've heard that for years. I've heard that with virtually every development project that's come down the pike to the county in the last 15 years. Engineers come in and say, traffic's going to do this improvement's going to do that. And the local residents stand up and go, no, it's not, it's going to do something else. This is what it's going to do, and you're going to exacerbate the problem. And lo and behold, at the end of the day, the residents are usually right and the engineers are usually wrong. You want to know that. You sat up on that board for a long time. And as a practical matter, I mean, I drive to Arlington 6 a.m. every morning. You couldn't pay me to go east on 55 through Linton Hall to Linton Hall and then up onto 66 that way. Not only do you have, even if you put the intersection improvements on, you still got to deal with the ramp traffic and the merge. It is much easier, and the traffic does not back up as you asserted it does, to go through town, hit 66 at the Haymarket exit, and travel literally at 70, sometimes 80, well past Gainesville. So I'm not going to buy the traffic argument going east. I don't see it. At the very least, I see a substantial portion, a significant percentage going through town and exacerbating the situation that's already there. So, I mean, it's lose-lose for us. Whether it's 20% of the traffic that comes through or 80% of the traffic that comes through. Under current circumstances, and there's no way to widen the roads through town. There's no way to make any real improvements here. It's not going to get any better for the residents of the town. 55 upgrades. It's a great thing to say that 55 is going to be 4 lanes all the way to Linton Hall. I don't see any transportation money for it. I don't see it in the long-range plan. I don't see it on their schedule right now for road improvements. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, from prior to Catharpin to your development, it's going to be 2 lanes. Unless somebody can show me different, show me where the county's going to get money, unless Corey's going to suddenly float another road bond that we're going to have to pay for him to do that amongst other projects. There's something to consider. I don't see it being 4 lanes anytime in the near future. It's just the reality of the situation, both from a fiscal standpoint and from a county planning standpoint, which brings up county planning. I'm terribly annoyed, both as a resident and as chair of this planning commission, having been a former council member for 8 years, all the time and effort the town has put into doing the road improvements at the western end of town, or excuse me, on the eastern end of town, with the sidewalks and the road and the curb and the gutter and tying it into the current county plan, that you guys as a development team, I can excuse you guys, I mean, I understand, but the county transportation and the VDOT hasn't said a word to us, and my understanding is this has already been cleared through Richmond, and I'm assuming that Rick Canizales carried the water for that, and didn't have the courtesy to tell the town when it impacts our design. We've got construction underway for the current road model. I don't know how this is going to change it. It probably will. I mean, are we going to have to re-engineer something? Are you guys going to have to re-engineer something? I don't know, but I'm going to have to issue a very heartfelt thank you to the transportation department in the county for sort of dumping this on us. I'm not surprised. I have even less respect for the county transportation department than I do for the state transportation department, because again, this is typical. It's all done piecemeal. It's done by 100-yard or quarter-mile sections. Oh, we're getting a road improvement. Yeah, we're getting a turn lane. Joy. Your section. Route 15 is littered with them. It's 2 lanes and it's 4 lanes for 100 yards. That's not a road improvement. That's an entrance ramp to a neighborhood. It drives me insane. Let's see. West End roundabout, eastern traffic, CEC, transportation plan, negative revenue, single car garages. One thing I don't see, and perhaps it's because it's not detailed enough and it's not blown up enough. How much street parking do you have internally?
This side of
Both sides.
This side, we don't have single-car garages. All garages are 2-car garages.
Okay.
With 2 cars in the driveways.
How long is the drive?
The driveways are over 18 feet,
Okay.
minimum of 18
Not
feet.
worried about that side.
So we have driveways and garages.
Cool.
On this side, I have 3 spaces per unit. 1 space on the surface, 1 space in a driveway, 1 space in a garage. So even worst case, you still have 2.
Cool. We're good. Takes care of that problem. I'm a little concerned about the through traffic through the Piedmont Center. I forget what they call that, Piedmont Plaza. Again, typical of county development at the time. That was not really well thought out. I don't know if you've tried to drive a pickup truck between those two buildings when people are parked there. That will be an interesting experiment if you've got through traffic going through there at all hours of the day.
Well, that was one of our concerns, plus the fact that there's no legal right to come through here. There's just a zoning right.
Yeah.
And so that was why it was important to work out the east access.
I'm also concerned how they're going to tie into the traffic circle, because
The circle.
that's an interesting entrance they have.
Well, this will be rebuilt to basically tie in, so they'll have one lane in, one lane out of the circle with a wedge, so they can only go right in and right out of that. There, hit the circle, go around the circle.
They're going to have to do some serious grading. There's
So
going to be
when you
some
say
sight lines.
that it's a zoning right only and not a legal right, have you gotten permission?
This gets to my whole CEC thing. Since it's
Okay.
not a combined parcel and they don't control the property rights of those guys, and you're incorporating that commercial factor or that commercial square footage into the CEC calculation, this is why it doesn't work. That's one of the reasons it doesn't work for me. Yeah. I only have one other thing. I want to make sure I've only got one other thing. Yeah. One other thing. I knew Alan Gossam pretty well. And I'm afraid Alan's rolling in his grave. One of the problems that I've had over a long period of time is how development applications in the county impact adjacent properties. You purport that you're going to put commercial at some point in time on those two pad sites. In an ideal world, if I were the county, I'd make you phase this project, and that would be phase one. There's no way around it. I mean, that's the mistake this county has made for decades. They do mixed use development plans. They allow the developer to build the residential first. They phase it so the commercial is done second. Once the rooftops are built, once we reach that critical mass of rooftops, and then the commercial never gets built. Or the commercial gets rezoned to residential, as just happened over at Heritage Hunt. It's the never-ending story. We don't have enough rooftops to generate the need for the commercial space. Period of time goes on. They come in and go, well, there's still not enough rooftops, so we need to convert it to residential. Then they come in, they convert it to residential. Somebody comes in with a commercial plan, goes, we're going to build our commercial. Suddenly it's not viable. We want to change it to residential. It's a never-ending cycle in the county. And the problem that I have with it is this. You're going to proffer those two front parcels as part of your commercial development, and you're next to the residential homes of the Smith and Gossam families, residential properties of the Smith and Gossam families. So if I'm sitting here looking down the road, and I know that you've got the Lerner property scheduled for a shopping center, you've got commercial development at the corner of Kidharpin and 55, you've got Peg Contrucci's condo and townhouse developments going in down there. I see that eventually being the same, and I don't see that little tiny road being able to handle all of that traffic, all of the existing traffic, the shopping center traffic, the condo traffic, the townhouse traffic, and everything else that's envisioned between here and 29.
I'm sorry, which road are you referring to?
55.
55. If it's in the county will require frontage improvements for any project that comes in.
I'm aware.
Okay,
And I'm saying a turn lane into the property doesn't cut it for me.
They don't require just turn lanes, just like they didn't require for us. They will require full frontage improvements as part of the comp plan, and part of the zoning requirements is that you come in and you're changing. This is not residential, it's agricultural.
A1.
Yeah, so-
Even a lesser use right now.
It's pig farm.
It's one density unit per 10 acres,
Right.
yeah. So if
So
you're providing a circumstance under which they can argue to the county, well, they got 10 DUs and I've got my 1 per 10 acre. I want to convert my property so that it belongs like that, and I end up with 150 more.
They are in CEC the same as we are. Their mass comp plan in CEC. This keep in mind that the CEC overlay here occurred after Piedmont Plaza was here, after medium residential was right across the street.
And my understanding of the CEC regs is that all of the requirements have to be fulfilled within your parcels.
That's correct. And we're saying, and we have said from day one, that the CEC is misapplied in this area because typically in the CEC, you want 25 contiguous acres for a development plan. This CEC overlay was actually already in violation of that requirement because you have 14 acres here, 14 acres over here.
Then it doesn't work, does it?
Right, so the CEC is even a misapplication of the comp plan and even saying that this piece should be CEC. Because you couldn't get 25 contiguous.
I understand that, but if you can't do it, then you can't comport with that, so you should be doing a comp plan
This is why I
amendment.
addressed in the very beginning that this was identified, we identified as a problem because we preferred other than CEC. But the CEC overlay, the planning director and the head planner at that time, Debbie, went to the legal and they offered the solutions that we tried to get access or purchase a piece.
Was this prior to Chris Price coming in?
Huh?
Was this prior to Chris Price coming in?
Right when Chris came in.
First one.
Yeah. And so, because we couldn't do that, Debbie and met with legal, and they suggested that we design and work with Piedmont Plaza. Now, I agree with you of the changing, ballgame with this as far as the zoning, because this first plan I showed you, the reason I showed you that is because that's what I showed to the county, 1989. This was already zoned.
Yeah.
It's gone through 5 comp plan reviews every 5 years, and it's never been changed from CEC.
Yeah, I know.
So
I hope you understand my frustration.
You're talking our frustration.
Yeah, I have similar frustrations. That's what I've got. I mean, quite frankly, at the end of the day, because of the density and because of all the issues I've got with any number of things from transportation to schools to the roundabout, I can't in good conscience, well, I won't say this definitively, but I don't believe that in good conscience I can recommend to the council that we recommend its approval of the county. I've just got too many issues. I'll sit down and take a longer look at it. We're going to sit down and talk about it, kind of figure out where we want to go, and kind of need to get the rest of the planning commission here one of these nights. We're going to schedule a work session. I suspect this will be one of the topics.
There are positive things.
I don't disagree. I could go on at the same length and breadth about the positives, but it's a balance at the end of the day. Now, I understand the properties have been in the families for a long time.
Well, actually, Mr. Gossam, I believe it was like 2008 or 2009, was one of the ones that initiated combining these properties.
I understand, but I can't take length of ownership into consideration when I'm doing this. It's got to be black and white. It's got to be balance it out. It would be nice, but I can't use that as consideration. Not when it impacts the other people that live here. Not when it impacts the adjoining property owners. Not when it impacts the traffic. It would be nice if I could, but I can't in good conscience do that. I've got to look at the black and white of it and try and make a determination based on that. Some of it's subjective, yes. Some of it's objective.
As far as the Haymarket, Lynn Hall issue, that the interchange is 100% funded.
Oh, I know it is.
And that,
Believe me, I know more about the Linton Hall interchange than I want to.
well,
And the movements.
the access to the westbound will happen.
I understand that. I also understand what the county has in the pipeline on the other side of Linton Hall. So, it's one of these things where it's great where the county and the state come up to you and go, we're making all of these improvements. Look how much easier your commute's going to be. Look how much easier life's going to be. Oh, by the way, we're planning another 20,000 units to put in there so that the traffic created by those new units that will probably be finished before the project is will eat up all of that additional capacity that we're giving you today. So, anywhere from six weeks to 6 years down the road, you're back to where you started or worse.
Well, in our visit with the community, and talking to the businesses over here, the businesses here, some residents, the project is supported. by
Is it
the-
supported by the several hundred units across the street?
It's supported by.
It's supported by the dry cleaners, the dialysis people, the post office.
Here, then we'd like to probably could say something about that. Yes. We've asked them to join.
Yeah, I'm of a similar opinion. I mean, it's a creeping issue.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you're talking about.
It's
the
mission
same thing-
creep.
Right. It's the same thing. It's the same thing we faced with Green Hill. A lot of that was originally zoned commercial. A big chunk of that was originally zoned commercial. There was an association formed to manage that commercial property, and it still owns that little chunk out there on the corner, which is still a nightmare. Never got resolved accurately, and then it got changed to residential. So. The situation that Bob is talking about, where you zone because somebody wants you to zone it that way, happens all the time. And it doesn't necessarily, in terms of long-range growth, benefit the community. When you're talking about, again, we'll build all these improvements, you don't build improvements for the people that are there. You never build an improvement for the people that are there. You build an improvement for the people you are hoping are coming there, the businesses you are hoping or planning. And there's reasonable demographics is a very, very well-known science. I don't know that this, the way it's structured and the way it's going to impact, because we have to look at it from the town. That's our concern, is our little quarter square mile area, is how does this impact the town? That's our biggest concern as we sit up here in these chairs. Not necessarily how it impacts the larger Gainesville area, all of that, but what it's going to do to the town. That's what we have to focus on. And given that we do have a less than optimal road situation, I don't see that we get a lot of benefit out of this. What I see is that we get a lot of traffic. I don't know that we get drive-through traffic that's going to stop for the businesses that we may or may not have. For the businesses we're planning out there, for whatever business we're going to, think about putting in there. This is mostly people, I think, that are going to be driving through. And they're not going to be driving through happy. It's going to be painful.
We'll sit down and we're going to have to hash this out, I think, probably either partially this afternoon. We're going to have to come up with a plan for how we're going to deal with this, but it is likely we're going to have a work session in Marchant. Any idea on scheduling that? Because we're going to have to have a work session for several issues prior to the next meeting.
Correct. Well, August 20th is the deadline for our items to go to the council. So if you want something in writing to go to the council, you have to finish it before then.
Which leaves us next Monday. I know how you guys love Monday meetings. Am I looking at the wrong month? I'm looking at August.
It's the 25th or 20th?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. 25th is the actual work session. Council work session.
So when do you need it?
Package on the 20th, but you need something to go out for that packet on the 20th.
So you need us to do this by the 18th?
Correct. Next Monday.
That's next Monday. How's your availability next Monday?
I could be here.
Holly? Sherry, let's schedule a work session for the 18th, 7 p.m. Holly and Marchant to attend, please. Planning Commission agenda items to be discussion of the fairgrounds, John Marshall Commons, and want to go ahead and schedule the comp plan work session at the same time.
Sure, I'll let the committee.
I'll throw Dominion in as well, depending on where we go with that tonight. Yeah, throw that in there as well. But I appreciate you guys coming in.
Thank you. Again, this was at courtesy of Supervisor Cannon. Typically, we don't have developers come in, so we invited them in.
Impact statement.
All right. soon as I get a chance to pick up their stuff and then move on. We haven't had a planning commission meeting this long in a while. No. We don't normally look at we used to. There's more. Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah. Gonna stay away from work right now. Yeah.
I'm the largest business and the largest employer in that area. I'm just here to see what's going on. So, that's it.
So,
I'm not on one side or the other. I'm just here to find out what's going on.
which to me is a telling statement. When I ask you've got a zoning right but not a legal right, to me that means that you guys, you're not an owner, but you are a renter, I'm assuming.
No, I'm an owner.
You are?
I own the largest lot in Piedmont Park Association. That's Rainbow Station.
Oh, that's not a single parcel. I didn't realize that.
No, it's three
Interesting.
parts.
Three parcels.
There's four parcels. There's the urgent care parcel in the front, and there's the Taekwondo, which you refer to,
Yeah.
U.S. Tigers,
Yeah.
the second row. And the third row is small business units,
That all fail.
physical therapy, a restaurant, and then the back unit is Rainbow Station.
And you own Rainbow Station?
I own Rainbow Station. Yeah, it's interesting. I can tell you that little road that goes in between, I don't see how you're through there.
You want the diagram?
I love that. If you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Hey, sir.
Try dropping an F-250 Julie.
I own an F-250 with a crew cab and an 8-foot bed. I've driven through there.
Okay,
So you know.
But the applicants have been very kind. There was a woman right there. She came through and she explained the project, talked to us, and invited me here. That's how I knew about it.
No, and that's good.
You're welcome to come to the work session.
I'm sorry?
You're welcome to come to next Monday's work session. It's open to the public.
And what time? 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, thanks.
All right. Let's wait for Marshawn. Social butterfly that he is. Actually, you know something? Chair, we're going to recess for five minutes. Oh! I got to get back to you later.
Just 2 minutes. What's your trade pursue expensive $1,000 to go to next year?
Yeah, so I went there today, and stuff like that. And that little place in the back of the solid brick that all for
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so basically read the riot act and said,
Not so much.
We'll call it back to order.
All right.
Dominion Transmission Line and Substation. Oh, this is going to be fun. Actually came prepared for this. Okay. Who's going to take this one?
Mr. Chair, I think yes.
tell me what you got.
Yeah, I want basically just to let you know, I provide a report in the package. Hopefully, it's pretty up to date as far as information that's been provided to the town. I have been meeting with Denise, and he reached out originally just to introduce this idea. There's been no other talks or discussions that this is the way it'll go. They basically proposed, came to us at our last meeting, which was the late part of July, and everything, and that's when the materials were presented. They notified me that they were going to be mailing it out to residents at that time as well, and that they had a open house schedule. I've also asked them to reach out to HOAs as well, especially HOAs that are directly affected, most of the towns affected. And what I was always planning on doing is basically getting them in front of council and having recommending council to have them work with planning commissions and the ARB with regard to the direct effect of the campaign.
ARB.
Correct. From the standpoint of when they're doing the distribution lines, from what I understand, going down Washington Street, they have to add to the pole, so therefore there would be an effect on the historic district. That's what they're proposing.
Yeah, it's part. You didn't see that? Wow.
No, I did. I just, okay.
Yeah, they want to add that.
Interesting.
They want to add that extra. I've got a little bit of information on that.
Okay.
What the reason for that is.
Okay.
Let me put that
No, I remember seeing that. Okay.
extension. So here's the problem I've got. We've spent months working on the comp plan, and quite frankly, this may engender some changes that I'm going to have to sit down and think about that. I really haven't had time to completely wrap my head around it and what changes, if any, it's going to require. But we're sitting here tonight talking with two property owners that may or may not be impacted depending on what their final route is or their ultimate route is. We've had quite a number of conversations over the last couple of months with a variety of different property owners that either are directly impacted by this or, again, potentially impacted by this. At the end of the day, I would have liked to have known about this a little earlier rather than coming into it this late in the game and sort of having to do this by the seat of our pants. If we had known about this in June, I would have been a whole lot more comfortable, would have been better prepared for some of these other people to raise it as an issue, because I suspect that at the end of the day, my personal view is that this particular power corridor is probably unbuildable. So the cynical side of me goes, if this is unbuildable and it's that obvious to me, it's got to be that obvious to them. So what's their real route? It's unusual for Dominion to come forward with one plan and no alternate.
I just worked on the SCC request up in Loudon.
Yeah.
And they're running assembly lines for the data centers in Ashburn, and there was
Multiple.
I almost remember it was a requirement that we provide 3 alternatives.
Yeah.
And do a cost-benefit analysis for each.
Same thing with the Walker Wheeler lines from Warrenton and Vin Hill up through the Bristow section. I was helping some people with that, and same scenario. Multiple different projected potential paths. I had several county hearings on it. Lots of outreach to the impacted homeowners associations, the homeowners, the agricultural parcels that were impacted or bisected by some of these proposed power lines. I don't know if you read the paper or followed the local blogs, but it was quite the topic for a several-month period and engendered considerable angst amongst the Board of Supervisors who had to put out the forest fire, and they eventually came to a compromise solution. I'm sure everybody's not happy with it, but it's probably I know certain neighborhoods are happier than they were otherwise with the ultimate path that was.
Well, it says here, Dominion is working to identify options.
And I get that's one. Yeah, that's one of the questions I would have asked Dominion right off the bat. Is you're working on options. What are they? Don't come to me with a single option and say this is what we're doing, especially one that, quite frankly, is this objectionable.
Well,
I mean,
and to Bob's point, had we known about this when the town was first contacted, Dominion has options, and they've known about this one for a long time. They didn't just finalize this last week. They've known about it for a long time. They've been ready to present it. They're big guys. They don't do things by the seat of the pants. We would have been better prepared to ask for those options, to evaluate those options, to push for those options.
yeah.
I think the biggest thing I can tell you is what it presented to what I received. We received the digital copies on July 28th, which was the packet you had. That's what I turned over to the council on July 29th at the work session. Up till then, there was 2 other meetings, but they did not have any. They had not identified their exact pathway of proposal. Now, to be honest with you, I will immediately say that just inexperience from the standpoint of working with a power line, and so basically I was just being the receiver of information, and as soon as I had something that was going concrete, then I was planning on taking it to the council. So that's what I'd offer, but I don't want you to think that we're like working on, this is the one route. I don't know.
I don't believe that at all. The problem is now, yes, Dominion sent out notification. Dominion set out the limited notification that they're required to within X number of linear feet for the power line, which means I got one, but my neighbor across the street did not.
I didn't get one.
Yeah, obviously you're quite a distance away.
Yeah, well, no, and I'm not that far from Bob's house, and I didn't get one.
Yeah, you're on the other side of the street, so you fall outside the corridor. Nonetheless, although I'm only probably 40 feet closer to it than you are,
Yeah, probably.
it's the view shed for your property is the same as my view shed between the houses.
56 feet.
56 feet, and you're probably talking about you're talking about a power pole that I'm assuming, based on their representation, is going to be roughly 100 feet tall, maybe 80, but probably 100. And I've got a variety of concerns about this in that it's running straight through the floodplain, it's running through the town property, it's running through several identified wetlands down there. It's running through an area that's got both steep slopes and highly questionable soils. And what's a power line power cut these days? About 140 feet wide, give or take.
The easement, yes.
The easement's 140, 150 feet wide. Where they're proposing to put this runs through the wooded area that separates Green Hill Crossing from Somerset. I mean, they would have, in essence, they're almost going to have to clear and grade the vegetated area between the two developments. I'm not sure how many people in Somerset even know about it, because I'd be willing to bet they're just outside the line and probably weren't notified. But what is now a view shed that is quite literally a wooded tree area where the only time you can see Somerset is at the height of winter, and that's if you look real hard between the trees, that all of that's going to be gone. Not
There
so
are
much.
opportunities to split where we don't feel like we have any standing ability to negotiate. Brian talked about this before, is a pedestrian corridor.
Yeah.
It's a worst case scenario, the point where it doesn't look likely that it's going to be removed or go to an alternative. I think there's opportunities to
Go to the SCC.
or have them amenitize it.
Yeah.
Kind of like the WOD trail when they ran the power lines along the WOD trail.
I suspect at the end of the day, if this particular projected path is selected by VDOT, or Dominion, as the one that they wish to take to the State Corporation Commission, I would suggest to Town Council that testimony before the SCC at the hearing would be warranted on behalf of the residents. To that end, I don't have the authority to do it, but I would appreciate it if the town would do some outreach, whether it be email blast, written notification, something to the general population of the town so they understand what's going on or they're aware of what's going on, because I have a sneaky suspicion that a vast majority of those, particularly those that are most impacted in Green Hill, who live beyond that line, that notification line, are unaware of this and unaware of, and you got the whole issue of what impact does a 100-foot tall power corridor have on your property values, particularly if it's running within 100 feet of your house and closer in some circumstances. I'd be willing to bet that although it's not our problem specifically, a lot of the townhouses on the county side of the Green Hill Crossing are probably going to be within. See, their back doors will probably be within 65 to 90 feet of the base of the power pole.
These guys are going to be
One of the
closer.
ways what I really think would be appropriate is really for planning commission to kind of talk about how this affects on the comprehensive plan and all these viewpoints and really work with council so we can kind of take them back in front. The issue with the ARV, I kind of feel like it's the same thing. You're aesthetically going to detract. Ideally, we'd love to have them buried for once. That's not going to happen. Relocation, unfortunately, we don't have really a grid pattern on the town, so it's not like you can relocate it back to the street behind it. So therefore, that takes it that option out. So the question is,
You're talking about the extensions right now, as opposed to the.
well, I'm talking about kind of like the whole project as overall as it's presented.
Let's deal with this as two separate issues. One being the power corridor, and the other being the I forget what term they use for it, the double build. Let's keep the two separate for the moment, because as far as I'm concerned, it's two separate issues.
So like the temporary,
The double build they're going to do on the lines to carry the additional voltage along Washington Street.
distribution reinforcements.
Is that what they call it?
Phase 1, new distribution line, that
That's
is 2 phases.
this one?
Yeah, right before it.
Yeah.
Haymarket projects, improve reliability, short term, and then you got
Yeah.
You know, what I find interesting, I mean, well, let's go to that for a moment. Let's talk about that for a moment. What I find interesting is, you know, they're going to put this double build, so they're going to increase the height by what? 5 feet? You know. We're in the midst of doing a utility relocation. How long has that been on the books? How long has that been planned? 15 years?
for the streetscape.
For the streetscape.
But,
So we're going to do the utility relocation. We've already done some of it. And now we're going to come back and we're going to double build them.
well, it seems like with the examples they're showing, they're just going to,
They're going to put a jack up top.
Yeah.
They're going to jack it up. From a philosophical standpoint, I've got a little bit of insight into what's going on here. Apparently, that is the double build is to accommodate the power needs of a particular data center. Whether it's existent or planned is a little unclear. What I've sort of gleaned from conversations with some of our local representatives and some of the people involved in the project is that it's an existing Amazon facility that requires the power.
in the warehouse that's out there today.
Yeah, in the warehouses out there today, that may or may not be the case. But
It's the old Hotman? Okay.
the old Hotman property. The other thing that I'm hearing from a source who's beyond question is that there is yet another data center being planned, and a massive data center with a massive power requirement. So,
West side,
my understanding is it's on the west side. Where exactly is a little unclear. My suspicion would be Midwood, or somewhere in the vicinity of Midwood. So, in essence, the way I look at it is, somebody has approached the county, or somebody is getting ready to approach the county, and has already approached Dominion Power, and said, we have this power requirement. You need to supply it to us on a project that we have yet to disclose publicly. And okay, we don't care what happens in terms of impacts on everybody else. Thank you very much. At the end of the day, do I really care about a double build on the power poles? Probably not. I mean, it's not going to be any more obtrusive or objectionable than what's already out there. You know, to my view, it should have been put underground, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, go back to, if it is for a data center, they should be not a single point of power failure. If this is the only line that they're running,
Yeah.
particularly if it's above ground,
Yeah.
then these guys are not speccing out their data center correctly.
Yeah.
you have to have it redundant, right?
Yeah.
Should be redundant, and it should be underground. In this day and age, it should be underground. So again, why are they putting this here? And it's particularly vulnerable. It's a bad plan. If what you're doing is supplying power to a data center, it's a bad
Well,
plan.
he says something like a temporary, it's
the short term, and then once they then put in the long-term solution.
Well, let's talk about the long-term solution too. I mean, you know, they're alleging that, well, they're not alleging, they're actually asserting that burying the power lines is fiscally not possible for them. It's too expensive. This isn't like the Walker Wheeler project. This isn't like the power lines from West Virginia, you know, stretching to Loudoun County. This is a rather limited segment. In fact, if you forego consideration of that segment from the 234 bypass to where the proposed line takes a turn south at Harpin, you're talking about less than 1.5 miles to 2 miles of line through a heavily residential area. I quite frankly don't care what the cost is. You're not talking about, you know, 10, 20, 30 miles as you are in the Wheeler-Walker transmission corridor, and you're certainly not talking about the hundreds of miles that you were talking about, or that they were talking about at one point in time from the extension from the coal-fired plants in West Virginia. and there's plenty of available easement to do this underground and to do it relatively cheaply. In fact, I would suspect that there's plenty of room in the VDOT and the DOT easements on 66 to run it straight down 66 underground, right to the intersection and right past Walmart. It's actually shorter and probably requires considerably less condemnation, taking, and everything else. I mean, that's sort of why I'm questioning why they chose this proposed route.
You do it while they're widening.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, getting to my cynical nature, my suspicion is somebody down in Dominion went, well, let's pick the really objectionable route, get all the public outrage against it, and then we can really just have an easier time putting it where we really want to put it. But that's just because I'm cynical. Strategery and cynical. What I would like to do, I think I can do this. In fact, I know I can do it. I'd like to schedule, I would like a notice to go out to all of the residents of the town. And quite frankly, I'd like it to include all of the residents of Green Hill County, Green Hill Crossing, county or Haymarket Town residents, both. And because I'm concerned that they might try to run it down the other side of 66, I'd like it also sent to everybody in Piedmont Mews, soliciting their input at the September 8th Planning Commission meeting, and have that as a, I don't know if public hearing's the right word. Do we call it a public hearing? Huh?
It would be a public, it's not a public hearing.
Public comment.
Yeah,
Public comment, public input session.
Yeah, I don't.
A public comment session to the item 1 on the agenda for September 8th, if there's no objection.
None.
Let's go ahead and do that.
Is that before or after?
That is before, because I think their open house is it's either the 10th or the 20th or something like that.
It's got it on the letter.
September 10th, it's the Wednesday following. That way, we have an opportunity to both educate the public, I guess, present what information we have in a public forum, get some discussion going, and that way, if any of them choose to go to the open house on the 10th, they'll be better prepared with at least some semblance of facts, and some might suggest conjecture, but I think it's a public service and an outreach that we probably should do. I guess technically the council could do that, but I don't know if they're going to have enough time between their work session. They don't have any meetings between now and then, do they? I don't know that they have enough time to put that together between their work session and their regular meeting, so.
Now, they could call for that. I mean, I would suggest, it's a great opportunity to show a unified front from the standpoint of concerns about what it's going to impact on the 10th. They could call for that through their work session and regular council meeting, which then puts it also setting the date.
Yeah, but the only thing is you got a short time frame from authorizing the notice and then actually having the public. I mean, we're sort of in the strange position, which is rather unusual, of having more time than them.
One thing.
So yeah, this is.
The same information is actually up on the website. You also got.
And I've got access to some additional information too through some other sources, which I can gather in hard form.
What I was going to suggest is like what we could do is then, I can tell you Councilman Aiken actually is already wanting to get a flyer out to all the residents in the town. So we were actually.
If one's already going out, then just append the meeting for September 10th, September 8th. Do we have? Are you in contact with Dominion?
I have contact.
Can we get? I know VDOT does this with us virtually upon request, but with very little grief. But can we get some large-size presentations from them? Area maps, route maps, whatever they've got, just in a larger format than 8.5 by 11, preferably on display boards. I'm sure they've got them. I'm sure they've got more than one copy. Sure, Dominion's not hurting for money. But it's curious. I mean, I do a lot of work with the feds, and the timing is curious. Well, it's curious. It's curious to a lot of people, but it's not terribly surprising to me. This is typically what the feds do. They wait until the Labor Day weekend, and you publish your notice prior to the Labor Day weekend when everybody's on vacation, and then you hold the meeting shortly thereafter or immediately before, so that nobody attends. Especially given that it's right back at the time that school's starting up and everything else. So, I mean, at least this will give the opportunity for the residents to voice concerns, complaints, rant, rave, whatever. And I, for one, will be going to the open house. I know that for a fact. So perhaps we can deliver some input that way on sort of an unofficial basis. But I'm not sure how they're going to handle it. They're not going to handle this like a VDOT public hearing where they're taking comments, I wouldn't think, Holly. Is it strictly...
It's an open house. That's not, to me, that's kind of like, I have no clue what that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a, here it is, deal with it,
You know what, that's not even, when I hear something like open house, even when we have a public hearing where public comes and they speak during the public hearing is documented. When I hear something like an open house, that means that's what, if you want to equate it to VDOT, it sounds more like it's kind of like a citizens information meeting, where just kind of come, we'll listen to you.
Ignore you and pat you on the back and say, thank you, Sonny, for your comment. And
I don't know what to think of it. I don't know what type of, but I don't know the nomenclature.
I don't know.
One of the things I would suggest is you want to wrap at the meeting on the 8th.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Because I was going to say, if they're coming to the council can also, we can make a recommendation to stress. Why don't you send a rep to the meeting on the 8th?
That would be nice.
Using our time wisely, which I think that's actually the proposing here, is saying we've got a little bit more time, so we get more time for the residents in the area, Haymarket, and the greater area. To get out here, I think it's perfectly plausible to have them come and be available.
Feel the heat.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I agree. I've got no issue with that.
In the notations here, it said eventually, it's a combined effort with Dominion eventually going over to Novik. So is this new service line going to be transferred fully to Novik? Because Dominion services us, and Novik is Gainesville.
I believe so. Novik.
Novik is mostly north.
They purchase power, but I think doesn't Novik, they serve Dominion back.
No, they serve Bull Run Mountain and
all the neighborhoods.
Thunder Oaks and stuff like that.
Right behind
They
it.
I think one of the things I remember when they named it Novik's going to be interesting purchases now.
But they're going to want to, because I know that they've had a lot of power issues in these new neighborhoods that E.R. Horton built up a couple years ago.
One of the other things I'm kind of curious about, when you were talking to them, they're making the assertion that they're going to locate this new substation near the load center, which screams that the load center, reading the tea leaves, the load center, I'm assuming, is the data center, and they're claiming that they're going to locate the new substation near the load center, but away from residential areas. And I looked at the map, and the substation makes sense in terms of where I suspect the load center is going to be located, where that data center is going to be located. But it ignores completely that it's immediately adjacent, if not part of, the planned retirement community at Midwood. So I'm sort of having trouble wrapping my hands around how you're going to locate a load center in that general location, but away from a residential area. So, and again, this just feeds into my cynicism. I also kind of, from a personal standpoint, they go into the reasoning of why this is needed, and they go into the projected or the actual commercial and industrial, I stress industrial development in the western part of the county, particularly in the western part of Haymarket, both within and without the town. And I kind of get the sense that that's wishful thinking on their part, because I'm guessing that at no point in time have they taken a look at the reality of both what's on the ground and the changes in proposed use, the changes in zoning, and the changes in the comp plan for that area immediately west of town. I mean, I can think of probably a half a dozen examples right off the top of my head, Midwood being the first. You know, Midwood was at one point in time both planned and zoned for that type of usage. Apparently the property owners felt that that type of development, given the exigent market conditions, wasn't feasible, and they've converted that industrial and that commercial use, industrial and commercial zoning to residential. That's how you have a retirement community, and not offices and data centers and that sort of thing, particularly in that specific spot where they plan to put the facility, where they're locating the substation. Similarly, if you look at Villages of Piedmont, what did they wipe out? 1.5 million square feet of commercial and office space?
They did, to our market.
Yeah, I mean,
To our advantage.
to our advantage, they wiped it out. So, I mean, if they're basing their projected need on, for lack of a better term, stale data regarding planned or existent uses in the western part of the county, and particularly the west of Haymarket, I think they need to go back and look at what's going in and reassess their load demand.
Maybe someone to watch for
the hospital. Yeah.
No, on the west side on the west side of Kohl's and Walmart's.
Where nobody knows what's really going to go in?
No, but those were converted areas, especially in the area north of town.
Yeah, it was converted to retail there. I mean, you're not talking. I don't think it's zoned for a data center.
No, I was thinking just more of taking out some of the commercial. Some of those areas were zoned residential before they were.
Yeah, you've got if you go to the north side by the hospital, you know, they've reduced the commercial footprint there too.
I remember some previous residential properties.
And I don't. What is the zoning for a data center in Loudon? That's not your ordinary B1, B2. That's industrial, right?
Well,
or flex sometimes.
Data center at one point was defined as office, and that created a lot of. It was most similar in use to office. That created the explosion of data center for a number of reasons. But this has changed.
Yeah.
But it's mostly your OP, your office parks, your industrial parks, your manufacturing parks.
Yeah, it's not your typical retail. And and with it comes the noise from the cooling units.
Noise generating use.
Yeah, very much so. You get that hum constantly. So I am concerned with where this is going. I'm concerned on a number of fronts. I mean, literally, when the letter went out, the letter arrived one day last week, and I hadn't even gotten out of my car in the driveway before I was beset by several angry neighbors. Fortunately, I was prepared at it because I had gotten a heads up in my office about what was going on. So I had stuff with me so I could assuage them by giving them pretty little maps and pointing out what was proposed. Of course, that actually made them angrier when they saw the height of the towers. hadn't thought that part out, I guess. So yeah, if they can, I'd like to have a public input session on the 8th. I'd like that to be widely advertised. If Dominion is willing to send somebody in here, I'm more than willing to welcome them.
Bring your Kevlar.
Bring your Kevlar. Bring your asbestos shorts. Come prepared to answer questions. Don't expect to make the presentation and simply stand by stoically and not answer anything. But that, yeah, I mean, I think we owe it to the residents, both of the town and, those neighboring residents in the county who, quite frankly, many of them consider themselves part of Haymarket, to get as much information out there and collect as much input from them as possible, because I suspect at the end of the day that if indeed desires to push this particular route and offer it to the State Corporation Commission as the alignment that they want. I suspect the town will have to, well, not have to, the town should and will probably be strongly encouraged by the residents to comment negatively at the SEC hearings, which could get interesting. I will make some attempt to meet with the county's planning people, sort of get a sense of what their position is. I suspect the best way to do it would be to go through the Gainesville representative of the Planning Commission and sort of get their feedback. And perhaps, this is one of those instances perhaps where one of those joint, it's not joint planning committee, it's joint, wherever the two jurisdictions get together for planning purposes and put together, I'll have to look up the state code on what it is. The wording escapes me at the moment. It's not really a planning committee. It's
jurisdictional.
They call it. It's a joint something. I just don't remember what the actual terminology is. There's a specific nomenclature for it, and perhaps. Yeah. I mean, I'll look it up tomorrow. It's no big deal. But perhaps where you get a subcommittee of that committee and a subcommittee of ours. I guess we'd have to keep it to. Well, we're going to keep it public anyway, so it doesn't matter, I guess. God knows we're not going to do anything behind closed doors, so I guess the membership doesn't really matter. But perhaps that way we can, to the extent that it's possible, and I'm assuming it would be, I'm assuming that the concerns of the county are going to be roughly parallel to the concerns of the town, and they've got a whole lot more firepower than we do. So that's what I would like to do. So.
Separate public input period and our comment.
Yeah, let's do that first.
And then also get some large receiving material as well as make sure any flyers go out to
Yeah, can you think of any other neighborhoods that are, those are the only two I can think of that are adjacent. I don't know that Somerset's just too big and it's cost prohibitive. I'll make that the county's problem. I know a troublemaker or two over there.
I think one of the ways to convert that cost is if we look at the postcard thing. You got the postcard.
That's fine.
You get them to go to the website.
Do we still have the ability to send an email blast? Or is that a Jen question?
I think you do, but you have to have an email address.
We do, yeah. Those that aren't in town would be a little difficult.
But, well, I mean, at least as an additional measure. Because there's no real sort from, you've got a mass, you get the ability to send that in mass, right? You've got that set as a separate file, send file, address file. So there's not really any terrible cost to that. Writing them out. Yeah, perhaps that's not. Let's go ahead and do that too. So, rather than sit here and banty about the fairground and John Marshall issue, we're going to have the work session on next Monday. I'd like everybody to think about all three projects, and we'll iron out what our take on the three is, and I guess we're going to have to. You need a written recommendation to council for all three.
Not the power line.
Not the power line, but fairgrounds and John Marshall.
Yeah. Fairgrounds and John Marshall comments about looking.
Do you need one for fairgrounds? There's actions to be taken.
Yeah, I don't think we need one on fairgrounds because we're not going to.
Well, the point of bringing them here to you.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
They really didn't get it tonight.
Here are our concerns, so if you're going to, yeah.
What I would suggest to them is to say, they came, they spoke to us. One of the issues that we have concern is population threshold. As a part of any evaluation, there should be some sort of build-out study or some other fiscal study that is provided with the analysis to make sure we don't. Those types of things I think are appropriate.
how much time do you have between now and Monday? How much time would it take you to give me a 5,000-foot view on a zoning text amendment to allow, for lack of a better term, big box retail in the, what do we call it? What do we call that area?
B2? Planned Interchange Park?
Planned Interchange Park.
Is it comp plan or ZTA? Well, right now you're...
As a ZTA to allow it.
Well, right now you're...
I mean, zoning...
By special exception, over 35,000 square feet.
Is it still by special use?
Over 35,000.
Over 35,000? So we do have the ability to do it.
If your comp plan already says that you're allowing that, I mean,
It's not clear. There's
money.
It's auto-oriented, service-related.
like I'm saying. I mean, I'm not saying I want another Walmart there.
Well,
But-
does that also allow for the possibility of a hotel or some kind of hospitality?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Okay.
yeah. I just can't envision. I'm having a hard time envisioning mixed use on the relatively minor scale that was proposed tonight. It's not really mixed use. It's residential with a couple of pads.
Well, what was left on there is if they want to build the residential first.
Yeah, and that's that's the whole thing I got to do with the phasing here.
Well, what I did ask them to do was part of it too, goes back to like the fiscal analysis, is show a legitimate plan of developing that site, whether it be a big box or frontage. They basically compare that to what they're doing. Or they say, realistically, if we have a single big box user, it would only be so many thousand square feet with a sea of parking out front. Compare that to what they're doing today.
Well, I mean,
So I'm saying, or what they're proposing.
Yeah.
Do a comparison. How much are we losing?
look at the symbiosis you've got over at Gateway, though, with some of the big boxes where you've got the smaller retail buy. I mean, up by the theater, for example, you've got that small niche retail, whatever they call it, specialty retail, but it's in close proximity to what, BJ's?
Well, that's, again, the whole anchor store thing.
Yeah, you need the anchor. I have said for years, you cannot make this, from a realistic standpoint, you cannot make the town's quote-unquote vision of specialty retail, boutique, whatever you want to call it, doesn't work unless you have that anchor to drive it.
Well, I think across the street is going to be a restaurant. I think with the big box
You need a retail anchor to. I mean, unless you have something like a. It's not even really a restaurant, but you've got something like the old Borders model, where you've got the coffee shop and the bookstore that will drive a certain number of people in. And
Well, the Starbucks there I thought was interesting. But to me, it's if you go in there and have them lay out what is a legitimate development threshold and how does it compare to what they're doing. If they're saying we could otherwise develop 130,000, we're only developing 70, that's something to be said. How much are we losing in exchange
Yeah.
for the residential? I think the other part of it too is, do we want to create a competing district to our downtown? Do we want to create a competing,
Well-
pedestrian mall or other pedestrian thing that takes people away from what we want here in the town core? Does that make sense? In other words, we don't
it does, but the question is.
promenade over there that's going to directly.
It does, but the question is it going to be a different kind of retail? We don't know what's going on over there. We don't even know if it's going to get built. We don't know that this is going to get built.
Well, we don't want to compete against ourselves. is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. We don't want to create a competing business district within 150 yards.
But
all flashy and brand new.
if the character of the two is different, and I don't know what their proposal is. I don't. I haven't seen anything on it yet.
What they're doing is one story. What they're doing out there is one story, a little bit two-story office, mostly one story, strip
Yeah,
type of development. They'll produce some high-quality.
like everything else in Western Prince William County.
So you need more.
So, but yeah, it's something to talk about next month.
And we could talk about this next week as well, but what the scoping, what they're going to be on for the traffic analysis, talking about the 120.
Yeah.
They're not talking about looking at other alternatives at this point. I'm just saying the scoping for the
You will mention that at the scoping meeting?
traffic analysis. I can, absolutely. I'm just saying, and granted,
you've got your plan in hand.
You got your plan in hand, so I just kind of wanted
I thought this was a little odd, the way they were doing this, but
I just want to bring that up, is the scoping is Wednesday with VDOT. and like I said, you were talking about some of the chip generations and stuff like
yeah,
that. Now it didn't do a comparison by right versus the zoning change.
yeah,
But when they're talking about adding an additional 5,000 cars per day on Washington Street,
yeah. Well, I mean, it gets to the whole point, the whole discussion of what's better for the town residents in terms of traffic is a commercial center that's going to have its main traffic between the hours of, 9 or 10 and 5, where it's spread out over that period better, or are you dealing with point-intensive traffic for 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening?
Well, different peak hours.
Different peak hours, but different peak loads, too. I mean, your peak load for a shopping center is going to be significantly different than your peak load for a residential session.
Well, your AM and your PM peak are going to be different, too.
Yeah, it's significantly different.
they are at least looking at the Saturdays as well, just according to what their preliminary scoping. They have weekdays, they have Saturday.
Okay.
Because that was something I know that I talked with John Marshall Combs about is, if you look at weekend traffic, it's different than weekday.
Weekend traffic's a nightmare. But,
But I just want to bring that up. I think they're kind of feeling past the point of getting out additional.
Speaking of John Marshall Commons, do we have any sense of what the actual road section would look like at the end of the day? From Tyler all the way to the town line?
Yeah, we can grab that they actually show, I think they show it in the plan they give it.
Do we have a...
Wasn't in the plan that you were passing.
Yeah, do we have a large detail on that? Because I'm still...
I don't have a large one, but I have at least the 11 by 17.
Okay. Because I'm having a hard time visualizing how they're going to make that work.
It's actually not, you know what, and I would like to get into this more at the meeting next week. It's not going to be as difficult as what you think, because what we've always allowed for is a 4-lane section without left turn lanes.
I can visualize how it works from Tyler to the town line. I'm just curious how they're actually going to lay it out. My problem is how it's going to work from Tyler to the warehouses by the railroad tracks. Yeah, I mean, that's not your problem. I'm having a real conceptual problem with that, given what's on the county books right now in terms of plans. So, and I apologize for keeping everybody so long. Do you have anything else? I thought you had one issue.
Regarding an announcement?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sherwood Forest received a notification indicating that tomorrow and Wednesday, well, the 13th, they're going to do the top coat or the top pave for all the streets. We got a letter from D.R. Horton today, as well as a door handle today. So I appreciate D.R. Horton's, candid short-term notice.
I'm actually surprised they're doing the top coat when they still have to do the Main Street market.
Isn't that...
They sent a notice to all neighbors, and they said that your cars cannot be parked in the street for 2 days, and that your cars will be towed.
Weren't the improvements to Fayette
I'm not kidding.
proffered prior to...
We have never found anything that the Fayette Street improvements had to be done prior to the townhouses. And Fayette Street improvements have not been done. And
I thought they had to be done...
they haven't been done.
I thought the proper... Do we have the signed copy of the site plan?
That's one of those, I didn't review that. It says what we have is sketchy. It's not... We need to talk to John about that. Because I just know that it's a goofy... Yes, I've seen it. They took the Fayette Street improvements and did an insert on the cover sheet to show that the improvements on Fayette Street.
No, there was a separate section. God, I'm
And that I've seen signed by the mayor, and that one is signed. When they took this inset and put it on the cover sheet,
that would have been signed by
I
Big
was going to ask
Taylor.
about Fade and other parts, but long story short, when I got the letter from both the company and the builder, there was no contact information. It said, this is going to happen. Thank you. Have a nice day.
I'm glad they're doing part of it. And I will say, because I've started coordinating the as-built on that as well, and that was even a comment, don't bother resubmitting until you've done your improvements on Fayette Street.
Well, who's got their original site plan? Do you have it?
Do I have it? So just Jen would have it.
Jen would have it.
Could you, somebody, when they get a
Yeah,
chance?
people were talking, last time when Gene was here, and we're talking about it, was holding up some of their occupancy permits. Well, they're all are done.
That's what, because I could have sworn that when we did this, that was one of the triggers was they had to do it prior to completion, because we were concerned about the traffic impact on Fayette and it was after construction because they didn't want the trucks to tear up the brand new road, but there was a time trigger on it. I just don't remember what it was.
We looked for one before and we couldn't find a time trigger. And I know I at least reached out to D.R. Horton to say, I'd really like to see you get it done before school starts because the school buses won't go back up there.
That was Guy's property, so Guy's got copies of all that stuff. That was Guy's project.
And it still has been widened, but as a result, I have to sit on the side of the road and let people pass when they have larger vehicles or F-250s. So
they technically have to do it. I just thought, and my engineering mind, that they would do the widening, and then what they would do is do the overlay, the
top coat.
The final top coat at the same time.
At the same time as they do the developments. That's why you kind of surprised me to hear that they're doing the final top. I mean, anything is right, but nothing. But don't get me wrong. I even sent an email out to D.R. Horton maybe a month ago.
We still hold their bonds, right?
Yeah, we still hold the bonds. And I said, what is your plan? I guess they had some problems with their psychic people now. The response I got was that the site people had kind of flaked on him and he was going to try to reach out to them one more time. He had bids to have someone else do that work. So it's not like D.R. Horton is denying what they need to do.
it's karma for D.R. Horton. We've been waiting for them to fix a few side issues
Well, all of
themselves, but
all of the properties within the VDOT right away, right? So there's no condemnation, no.
There's no condemnation. They did ask if the town took issue, if they shifted it within the right-of-way a little bit to line it better with the curb lines. And I don't, because they were showing a sliver widening on both sides, which actually doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
So I said, no, as long as you're staying, no problem.
Within the right of way and within the
Yeah,
easement.
and right-of-way, as long as we get our width, if it lines up better, I'm fine. That's not a big, I still want shoulders on each side. Because, even if they don't widen on one side, they still have to give me the shoulder.
That's complete curb and gutter as well, right?
No, it's shoulder section.
Shoulder section, no curb and gutter?
It's no curb because they don't have sidewalks.
Oh, that's right.
to add insult to injury, this is a final note regarding the issue. There is an approved plan, presumably from the Planning Commission era being council. Someone, when the having a patio built, a nice one based on the stones I've seen on the street. There's a lot of work material on the street as a result. So I don't know what they're going to do in terms of, are they going to top coat around it? But it is impacting a project in progress that the town had approved.
They have building material on the street.
On the street.
Okay, they should. I can do it.
I understand. I mean,
I understand it. The time
I'm going to cover my ears now.
You're not allowed to use the street as your staging area.
it's not my project.
I'm just saying, it doesn't matter if it's an approved.
You must not like your neighbors.
They'll move those materials. They're going to do a top coat. They'll move those materials.
Or they'll wait to do that, or they'll come back and do that street at a later date.
Yeah.
But I just am saying, technically.
Sorry I brought this up. All right. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're out of here.
We're in our desk meeting tomorrow.
Oh, and who is buzzing me on my phone?